Good evening and welcome to the June 1st, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting. I am your chair, James McCartney. I ask that we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we'll do a quick roll call. Supervisor Lewis, Supervisor Weiss,
Here.
Supervisor Blundy,
Here.
and Supervisor Grenier.
Here.
Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item number 3.5, I guess it would be. Just a reminder, public comment on agenda items will be taken as each item is discussed. Community announcements. I just got out of the corner of my eye, Mark from, I believe Cornerstone is here. Would you like to just come up real quick and make an announcement regarding, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but John said that he saw you. Yeah, sorry about that.
Hold on, let me find my piece of paper.
Before Mark.
No, I get, I usually get paid to make appearances like this.
Thanks.
First of all, thanks for having me here. I'm representing the Cornerstone condominiums development on Township Line Road. I don't know if everybody knows what happened there. Late Friday night, we had a severe fire, which took out about 8 of our units and caused multi-million dollars in damage. Luckily, nobody got hurt. And thanks to the fire department, Tim Chamberlain was out there for 12 hours with us. Station 80, Station 0. Thanks to Chief Caluzzi, his guys were the first on the scene to help us clear buildings, which was amazing. They were there within minutes after the fire call came in. And I'd like to thank the fire department for spending 12 hours out there. That is not usual. And I know because I volunteer with the fire department. That is not unusual. They were tired. They were dirty, but they were right in there. They helped save buildings. I believe the fire department and the police department saved lives. They got people out quickly. And our homeowners association is working very hard right now to raise money for the families that are displaced. And we right now have 8 families that probably are going to be living in hotels for the next 12 to 24 months. And I'm not sure what insurance companies cover, but from my experience, they don't cover much. And there's always a lot of money out of pocket. We've had donations. I want to thank Supervisor Lewis, who quickly stepped up with the Lions Club and a personal donation, which is, we were very honored to have you do that, and we appreciate that. I'm asking our Cornerstone, the Lower Makefield family, to go on GoFundMe.com and search Cornerstone condominiums and make a donation, because 100% of the money is going to go to families that are displaced and help them stay in the area. We don't want them leaving the area. Quite a few of them said it's going to be hard to live in a hotel for 2 years. And the costs involved, the insurance companies won't cover all those costs. And a lot of the people lost everything. So I'm appreciative of a chance to come up and have you give me an opportunity to speak to the greater community.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Right.
And we appreciate Tim and the job that the firemen do and Chief and the job that those guys do. It's thankless and it's amazing what they do for us. So thanks.
Yeah, I would just wish that, I don't know if the chief is out there.
Yeah, he's on
I'm
the
here,
screen.
Mark. I'm here.
Chief, your guys were great. Officer, oh God, I can't remember his name now. But the officers
Yeah.
out there were running around with me, knocking on doors. We got everybody out and they were there keeping everybody safe. And the fire department, including multiple jurisdictions from all over the area. We had a Township Line Road closed and they were there for 12 hours. It was very heartwarming and a lot of work.
Excellent. Well, thank you
Well-
again. If anybody can donate, please do.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Would it be possible if we could post the GoFundMe on the township's social media presence and the township website for those who want to donate in this case?
I am not 100% sure of the logistics of that. Kurt, do you have any?
Sure, we could do it. My question for Dave is there any legal issues with doing so?
You're just providing a platform. I don't think there's any prohibition against it.
No, I don't think there's any problem then putting something on the website and linking it over to that page and running that on Facebook and Twitter as well. We'll take
All
care.
right, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. And again, thanks to the BOS for very quickly helping us out with this. And we're trying to get the word out to help the families as quick as possible.
Excellent.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Mark.
John,
Have a good
thank you
night.
so much.
Thanks. Kurt, do you want to take over the rest of the community announcements?
Sure. Reminder, during this portion of the meeting, residents or youth organizations may call in to make a special announcement, or you can contact the township at admin@lmt.org to have something posted for a future meeting. Lower Makefield Township will be hosting a tween camp called Tween Adventures. Registration is now open. For more information, please visit the website at lmt.org. You can look under our recreation department. The Lower Makefield Township Farmers Market starting back up again at Charlene Farms. They will be there every Thursday from 3:30 to 6:30, starting from June through September. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Agenda item
Hey,
number 5.
James,
sorry,
can I
go
say
ahead.
just quick thing? One, wanted to say thank you to everyone that came out to the Memorial Day parade on Monday. It was a hot one, but it was well attended and very well done. Thanks to the VFW and the Legion and everyone that came out. I know Supervisor Lewis and I sweated out on that walk, but it was well worth it. And then also thank you to township staff for putting up the Pride flag in honor of Pride Month this month. So happy Pride Month, everyone that's out there.
Thank you. Any other announcements by supervisors? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5, consider approval of minutes for May 18th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion? Any public comment? Caught a,
I have to abstain because I wasn't here for that one.
so you're out, okay.
I was in New Hampshire.
Called a question. All those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining 1. So the motion carries 4-0. Agenda item number 6, BOMA presentation. Can we bring Jim Kovalik in? Is he virtual or is he here? There he is. Hey, Jim, how's it going? You're on mute. There you go. Good to see you. We always look forward to the BOMA presentation, so by all means, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. So does our group. Last season, we actually, ended up with more of a management type program. We didn't get as many deer throughout the whole townships through either of them, but we still managed to donate 26 deer, which allotted to 1,088 pounds of meat given to hunters sharing the harvest, which equates to 4,352 meals that went to local food banks, which, is a big plus. That's, kudos to everybody on the board, kudos to BOMA. The team really put the effort out there and we still managed to donate, which is the most important part of our program. As far as our program coming up this year, there's really, hopefully this year, there's no real changes to our program, just some dates, hopefully. We have no cost to the township. Every hunter is insured for liability for $1 million. We purchase our own licenses. We do donating. If we do any donating outside of hunter share and harvest, we actually take those meals, we pay for them ourselves and donate them to local families in need. With the whole COVID situation, many of our hunters did that, which I think is another big plus. We still have the same vetting program that we've used for the last 13 years that we've hunted with the township. We do proficiency testing with the archery equipment. We test everybody to make sure they can climb tree stands properly. We make sure that they have hunter ed and bow hunter ed with Pennsylvania. They're interviewed, to make sure that they're a right fit for the group and for the township, and make sure that we do a good job for everybody. We're still going to have licenses issued. We do background checks on every hunter to make sure that they're safe. We're going to still use the ID cards and the placards. And I'm sure, as the chief can attend to, we've had no issues throughout the community. And I think we've got a very good rapport built, and we would love to continue that if allowed to this year.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is there any supervisor questions? Any public comment regarding the BOMA? Oh, Dan, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any areas where you're seeing potential for this coming year where you have any concerns, or if it's basically sticking to the plan. Any more different focus areas for you?
It's a great question. We really need to get on some other properties. If we could do that, that would be very helpful, because right now, the properties that we're on, we've hunted them for 13 years. The deer are on to us, but we're still giving them a tough battle. But there's a lot of adjoining properties that we can't get on. If we could do that, we could actually increase our numbers significantly.
How would you have to work with our township manager or someone else to kind of see if that's a possibility? How would you recommend we look into that and try and help you out?
Good question. We actually have been working with Kurt on different properties to get on them. Farmland preservation, Dennis has allowed us on to lead them track. It would be nice, outside of Snipes, you have the, we call it, that's not the Black Farm, the farm right on the opposite side of the road there. We used to be able to hunt at Banca or Bond Farm, I believe it was. So, or Makefield Brook also called. If we could get onto that property, into that area, I think that would help our numbers right on that road, because last year that was one of the areas that we got a lot of interest from homeowners.
James?
Yes, Kurt.
So just, Dan, a couple other things as well. We've reached out to the county on some property they own down near the canal. They denied access to that property. Some of the open space that we have actually has provisions in it at the time of the sale to not permit harvesting of deer, hunting on any of those properties that I know Jim and his crew were looking at that had some limitations. And we have a lot of residents that call, and I say this jokingly. I mean, I have residents who will let Jim hunt off their back deck if he was legally allowed to do it, but there's certain Commonwealth rules between distance between properties and things that have to be observed. So, I think I think the staff will continue to provide options to Jim that he investigates. And, the part of the problem as well is if you have someone that says, hey, you can hunt this property once a week on a Saturday for a couple hours, it's difficult for Jim to get hunters out there, on limited schedules like that. It's a lot easier when it's opened up and there's time that he can place hunters in there. So all those challenges exist. And Jim's been great trying to identify properties himself for us to investigate.
Jim, I want to let you, because of you, I went out back in 2020 and finally got my hunter education card just so I could better understand what you guys were doing. So
Very good.
it was good. Appreciate it.
If you want
Excellent.
another
Thank
good
any other
class, the bow
supervisor?
hunter class is also very, very interesting.
It's on my list.
Any other supervisor questions?
Just real quickly, I've been a longtime fan of what BOMA has done. I want them to keep doing it. It's important for the community, and it's really truly a win-win. So I've been a longtime supporter and recommended them to other municipalities as well. So I'm always pleased, and want you guys to keep doing the great work you're doing.
Thank you. You allow?
Thanks. Any other public comment regarding BOMA? Anybody on the line?
No public comment online.
Thank you. So at this point, I will, I guess we have to do a motion. Is that correct? To continue to.
I guess
allow
the
BOMA to-
motion to authorize BOMA to continue the Deer, what's the exact phrase for that? The
Deer hunt.
Your harvesting
deer
program?
mitigation program, I guess.
Sure.
Dave?
Anybody want to make that motion?
Hold on, Dave. Dave, real quick question. Obviously, this agenda item was drawn up as BOMA presentation. I want to make sure we're consistent with what you've outlined of the requirements. Is this a motion we need to make sure we land on the next agenda in advance?
I mean, we can, I think the issue always is there sufficient notice? If it probably would be more consistent with the new Sunshine Act requirements to put it on the next agenda. I don't think we would be violating the law today if we did it the other way, but it probably is a better belt and suspenders approach to do it that way. As long as that's not going to, I guess it won't certainly slow down the process. We're not going to be doing any deer hunting in the
Jim,
next
does
2
June
weeks.
15th cause you any issues?
No, I mean, right now, the big hurdle that we have is we have to submit our dues for the insurance. And when I do that, I have to put in all the properties that we do hunt. So, and that is due, I think, on June 15th. So up and I'll have to make sure that they're good with waiting.
So do we need action tonight then? It sounds like we do if his deadline is June
If the
15th.
deadline is June 15th, I would go ahead and do it tonight then, just because if it's, some 9 to 5 Eastern time or something like that, you don't want to put BOMA in a bad spot that
Still
way.
want that motion?
Right.
I think the title of the program is the deer management.
Fair management. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
So,
Fred, you made a
Mr.
motion, right?
Chair,
I made the motion.
I'll second it if that's okay.
Absolutely. Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Anybody on the line?
Nobody
Here.
online.
Thank you. Hearing none, call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Number 7, I believe we're going to have another window pop up, correct?
He's on his way in.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Ebert. How are you?
Good evening. Doing very well.
Excellent. So it's all yours.
Okay. I have payment request number 1 for the Silver Lake Pump Station upgrade. The work completed was a replacement of all the interior piping, the removal of the pumps so that they could be repaired and upgraded with the impellers, the installation of the bypass pumping, and the amount is $141,596.91. So I will answer any questions the board has on the work that was completed. Since this payment request, the work is almost completed and probably should be done by next month. It's gone very well. No additional change orders, no what was approved last month. And Aqua PA is working very well with the contractor and is very impressed by the quality of the work by the contractor, which is Blooming Glen Contractors.
Thank you, Fred. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion?
Fred, how are we on overall budget right now?
Right on. I mean, we have actually reduced the cost. Our credits, deducted change orders exceed the cost of the contract.
So I thought, thank you.
Yep.
Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Okay, call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All right.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Ebert.
See you guys.
Yep. Moving on to number 8, engineers report. Andy, take it away.
Yes, hello Supervisors. I'd like to dive right into the agenda items that I have. The first item is the consider payment certificate number 1, which is the final certificate for the 2022 Community Park Tennis Court Repairs Project. That work was completed by Keystone Sports Construction. They have issued a 2-year maintenance bond, and they have provided all of the necessary paperwork to approve the final contract amount of $84,841.19. We inspected the work. The work is completed to our satisfaction. Therefore, we are recommending payment in that amount.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
It's a motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any supervisor feedback, comments?
Yeah, Andy, I confuse easily. Are these the tennis courts and the pickleball courts over here on Woodside? And you say community park?
No, this is the tennis courts and the basketball court that is over by the pool.
Okay.
Any other supervisor questions? Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Okay, call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Next one, Andy.
Next item is the consider payment certificate number 1, which is the final for the pool painting project. RJR Engineering Company completed the work to our satisfaction. They have provided a 2-year maintenance bond, which would expire on May 13th, 2024, and provided all the necessary paperwork. We inspected the work, and the work has been completed to our satisfaction. Therefore, we are recommending final payment amount of $58,525.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any discussion? Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Thank you. Call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. And then finally, the bid opening.
Yeah, so we opened on May 11th, we opened the bid for the 2022 Bike Path Maintenance Program. We received one bid in the amount of $191,150. That is an exorbitant amount compared to both our budget and our cost estimate. We have done some research and contacted several asphalt companies that do work in the area, wondering why they hadn't bid on it. And the majority of the responses that we got were that they were simply too busy or already booked up for the year. It would be my recommendation to rebid this and then allow a longer period of time for the contractor to complete the work, and therefore they could sneak this work in when they have gaps in their current schedule, or also fit it in at the end of their current, after they're completed with the work that they have on their plate. So I think that right now the board should consider, our recommendation would be to not award this project or this bid opening in the amount of $191,150.
Would that be appropriate to reject, a motion to reject all bids, Kurt? Is that what we're looking to do?
Well,
Okay.
bid, there's one bid, but
Yeah,
however
one
you
bid.
word it.
Yeah, okay.
Just to put it in perspective to the board, the budgeted amount that we had was $62,256.
Oh, less
And again, that was based on pricing with inflation. I think Andy and the group last year hit the number within like a 0.5%. And it's where it is this year.
So do I?
Chairman, I move that, that we rebid the 2022 bike path maintenance program and throw out previously received bids.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess the only concern I have with that is just, do we have any paths that are in such disrepair that they're in an unsafe condition that we could, if we do have that situation, do we have the funds to address that in the near term versus having to wait till whenever this is complete?
In my opinion, they haven't deteriorated to to such a point where they require emergency repair.
Any other comments? Any public comment? Anybody on the line?
No public comment online.
Call to question. All those in favor to reject bids and to rebid for the bike path, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Project
James, can we-
updates.
Sorry, can we ask him questions on his report?
On which report?
The engineer's report?
The engineer's report that I provided.
Sure.
And just a couple of quick ones, because I think the report was probably issued sort of in the interim. First one, Bright Farms, it says basically the work's going to be done by the end of May. Are they done? Put a bow on it?
I have to confirm with my inspector that the stone piles that were on the property have been removed and taken by the contractor, but the utilities have been removed in the driveway and the final grading has been completed.
With the proper soils can go back to
Yeah, we're
historic
still
uses.
waiting. Yeah, we're still waiting on final soil testing.
Okay,
So once we get that paperwork and we can confirm that the stone has been removed, then we can close that out.
excellent. I'll be happy to do that one officially. Woodside Road bike path, sounds like we might have finally gotten our DEP comments. Did that happen or are we still waiting?
The Conservation District has confirmed that they've gotten them. They're still trying to get them in our hands.
Okay, I understand how that is. Man, that is a long time for them. I think, Suzanne, to your kind of your question earlier a little bit, or building off about Memorial Park courts. Are those, I saw some postings on social media that they're open, but still some repairs left. How are we looking there?
I'm meeting with the contractor tomorrow. They went out and made some repairs and they are not to our satisfaction. And so I have provided them with photographs and requested a meeting with both the contractor and the subcontractor so that we can go out and mark out the specific locations that need to be repaired and repainted. And that's what we will do tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Sure.
And then I think, sorry, I'm flipping through this quickly. Oh, and then I guess I'll ask about Maple Vale. You're proceeding with survey and everything else there?
So there's two projects there at Maple Vale. One would be the drainage improvements on the south leg of the Maple Vale Drive. And yeah, we're proceeding with that. And we anticipate submitting for both the HOP permit because technically the storm pipe would run within the right of way of Taylorsville Road. And also our earth disturbance permit. We anticipate submitting for that shortly. And then we received we completed the survey for the Highland Drive portion of the work. And we are moving on with the design of the storm improvements there as well.
Okay. Is PA Water done with their work now? Just sort of related?
I do not believe that they are completed with the work, no.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Dan. Any other discussion or supervisor questions for Andy? Were you waving at me or?
No,
Spitting a bug?
it's starting to fly.
I'm only messing with you. Okay, I think we are good. Can we move to project updates? I believe that's you, Kurt.
I have, I was going to cover a point or two that we've already covered. The only thing I will add is the pre-construction meeting on the multi-use trail will be done tomorrow. That will include the inspectors and state and staff, and hopefully we'll have a specific idea as far as the timing moving forward after that meeting. But that's all I have.
Any supervisor question on project updates? Okay. Moving on, agenda item number 10. That's back to you, Kurt, manager's report.
Monica, are you in, is she there or is she?
She is, yes. She's walking up to the table.
Delightful. Hi,
I
Ann.
believe that one is, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hello, is Ann in? I think Ann is.
Is Ann in the room? There she is, yes.
Yes, hi, Ann. So today I've presented this plan quite frequently in the last few months. And last month I gave a full presentation of the plan. The plan has not changed since then. So today I'm here asking for Board of Supervisor approval for the Play for All Master and Strategic Plan for Parks and Recreation.
Excellent. Should do a motion first and then open it up, right? I believe so. Do I hear a motion out there to approve the Play for All plan?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there any public comment on this? Yes, sir. Please step up to the microphone. If you want to go to the either one, he can sit, I guess.
My name is Richard May, 1270 Creamery Road.
Can you just put that microphone close to you, make sure that it's turned on?
My name is Richard May, M-A-Y, 1270 Creamery Road.
Okay. You guys can hear him at home?
This,
Okay, thank you.
this plan has something to do with the building of soccer fields.
This plan has something to do with, I can't specifically say the building of soccer. Well, I think that's part of the development, correct? Yeah, it would be an assessment of needs within the township, yes.
I had actually sent a registered letter, which you received on May the 18th, asking for more information if there was to be a meeting to discuss this particular project. And I got nothing.
Just to be clear, this is not the Snipes plan. It just mentions in here moving forward with it. So there'd be further discussion.
Moving
It's not a
forward
Snipes.
What, moving forward with what? I don't,
I can answer that.
Yeah.
It would have to be a land development project. So it's not, it would have to go through that normal land development process. So this is not an official approval of anything at Snipes or of any other place. It's of a conceptual, just like our master plan in the township for every 10 years, we're supposed to do that. This is essentially the same thing as I understand it for, and I don't want to misstate, so please tell me if I'm wrong, master and strategic plan for park and rec facilities, basically in the township over whatever period of time it would be appropriate. Snipes is part of it in terms of its concept, but there's been nothing finalized. It's part of, there's been a needs assessment. Apparently soccer fields may be needed in the township. That may be a place that they'd be appropriate, given what the options are. But again, there's been nothing set in stone or finalized at all about that.
but if there's a plan, where is it?
There is no, well,
Well, it's online. It was, it's been online for about 8 weeks now. All the supporting documents for the plan have been
Was that
online
the
and available.
presentation that was made the last time?
Yes.
we were here?
We've made several presentations. We've made lots of
I haven't
presentations.
seen
for-
any changes from that. And it's-
From the last presentation to this presentation, there's absolutely no change.
We're talking about the possibility of spending as much as $4 million in this project.
there has been no funds allocated or no plan to spend anything. This is just a conceptual master plan based on existing infrastructure and future infrastructure.
So what does this lay out? I mean, what are the next steps? Is there going to be something where like we're going to say, oh, we've had this out there. The plan is to build this, 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 and this, and then you'll vote on it and we're done. Nobody's,
No, there's a public process. So we'd have to reach out to the community. We'll do public meetings and forums for every project that might come across as part of this plan as we move forward.
all I remember is about 5 years ago, there was a plan to build fields at Snipes. And the only reason it didn't occur was because the township ran out of money. Didn't realize they'd run out of money, but they did. Okay. Now we have $53 million that we got for the sewer authority. In fact, I'm a little bit curious as to why we're spending money on doing improvements to sewer when we've sold the authority?
I can answer that, James.
Sure.
That was a project that was approved and was underway prior to the sale of the system that we were obligated to finish because we had let the contract and already had the funds for that. That project started a year ago prior to the sale.
Okay. So one of the things that we've all probably seen is that the cost of sewer service has gone up tremendously. Not just a little bit, tremendously. And they just got approval at Aqua to get a $69 million additional increase in what they can charge people. And it seems to me that one of the key things that we ought to be doing here is figuring out what we're going to do to minimize the impact on the residents of Lower Makefield Township with this sale of the thing. We got $53 million and not a dime of it has been allocated towards any reduction of the potential cost to the township residents.
Yeah, that's a separate discussion that's not part of this discussion.
Got a lot of things on the agenda here. That seems pretty important because
Yeah,
it affects every single member of the township.
We did have a special meeting last night and we're having another one on June 9th. And both of those meetings are specifically being dedicated to sewer proceeds.
Has that been posted anywhere that you've?
Absolutely. It's been
Yes.
advertised. It's been posted. Yes.
Yeah.
It's on our home,
And-
it's on our homepage.
James, if I could add, we did talk about generally how to allocate sewer funds last night from a structural perspective. It was discussed towards the end of the meeting last night about potential funding of allocating potential funds for projects at our June 9th meeting, which include infrastructure, which I guess includes park and rec items. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in this, and how we are spending the sewer money, to attend that June 9th meeting, because it does sound like some folks may bring up park and rec projects to allocate specific sewer funds to. So I would highly recommend attending that meeting and keeping an eye on it and giving us your opinion on things.
It's not next Thursday, the 9th at 7 o'clock in this room.
Thursday night at 7 o'clock. The other thing was, 5 years ago, when you were considering doing this, there were 16 variances that you needed to approve in order to be able to build anything at Snipes. There was a traffic study that was never really done. It was some kind of we saw a bunch of cars, nothing official that was done. There's issues concerning the environment and the flooding that occurred. The water that runs down Dolington Road that goes into Brock Creek. There was a lighting issue. You wanted to do 80 feet high for lights. The ordinance only allows for 20. These 16 variants would still have to be done all over again if, in fact, you want to build something there.
Well, it may not be 16 if it's a different version of that. So if it's different amount of fields or a different amount of impervious, or if the salt shed doesn't need to be as close to 95 as it was in the original plan. So I don't know if all the variances are going to be the same or necessary at that point. So we haven't even gotten to that.
What I have heard in this plan is that Makefield is full. It's not sufficient for all the soccer games that they want to have. Now, I've gone down to a number of the soccer games at Makefield and generally seen as many as 10, 12 fields open anytime I've ever been there. There really is no problem with getting enough soccer games for the residents of Lower Makefield Township and whoever they play against. Where there's probably an issue is when you invite several hundred teams from around the country to come in for the 2 tournaments that they have. And this is the reason why they want more fields, so they can make more money on that. Very little of that money, we've been very reticent about saying how much they share, but I know that the president of YMS is salaried, and it's a 6-figure number. It was 5 years ago anyway. I'm sure it's higher.
That's a totally incorrect statement.
Pardon me?
That's a totally incorrect statement. Sorry. He is the president. I just gets paid zero.
Yeah, we'll, if you guys want to comment, we'll let you guys come up. If you guys want to comment, we'll let you come up,
Well,
but
all I know is that the township allows YMS to basically control those fields, schedule them and everything else like that. And I'm not sure how much the township actually gets out of it.
The township, I can give you a report. You can reach out to me via email. I can send you the financial reports. Steve, or not Steve, sorry, George, gave the final number, but somewhere around the $70,000 a year, something along that a year. I mean, it's significant.
Is what you get.
What Parks and Recreation gets, yes.
Okay. And yet the revenue from those what do they call them? Tournaments?
We also get additional revenue for that.
They do.
Yes.
Beyond the 70.
Yes. Mhm.
The tournaments haven't, like the tournament didn't take place this year for Mother's Day. Their COVID has impacted their ability to hold tournaments. And, there are other sports besides soccer.
Okay. Well, it just seems to me that the fields are adequate for what they need. We don't have near enough open space.
Just to be clear, that part of this study is studying the use of Makefield Park, so that will all shake out as part of that study.
So nothing is going to happen other, you're going to prove the fact that you want to do what's in there. Is it going to be a rubber stamp then, once
No, I mean,
come up
nothing
with
is,
something else, like, yeah, this still looks good, let's do it.
no, there's a process to everything. Even in the plan, it recommends engaging the community in every project. So that's all part of the plan.
Very good. I'm still concerned about the fact that I never got any notice of this meeting, which has right on here on the agenda, the very thing that I specifically asked for in the registered letter.
who did you mail the registered letter to?
Me?
Who did you send the registered letter to?
I sent it to the Board of Supervisors, addressed to here, paid $4.50 in order to get it registered.
Yeah.
I tracked it. I found out that it was received by you on May the 18th. It's June the 1st.
Well,
Nobody has said boo to me.
Kurt, if you want to interject on that.
so I'll have to look and see if something was put there. However, moving forward, right? If there's something you want, if you wanted to call in or if you wanted to do something official, open records requests, like if you're looking for a plan, go in and have a process. If those letters sort of are sitting filed somewhere, all I can do is apologize. We did post that stuff on there and we'll make an attempt if you have other requests on meeting dates, whatever. If you look at the website, most of this stuff will post right on the homepage. But if you call administration or again, send an open records request if it's a document or plan, that has a staff member that's assigned to answer those things specifically.
Excellent. So you know about the June 9th meeting. So that's next Thursday, June 9th. It'll be in this building at 7 o'clock. Please join us. We'll be talking sewer funds at that point.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to chime in on this? Either one. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Maureen McGroarty. I live at 314 Yardley Langhorne Road in the township. I'm a parent in the township. I'm also a board member at YMS. I'd like to once again thank you for all your hard work on the Play for All plan. As a board member for YMS, I'm obviously excited for the opportunities it provides for our township athletes. I need them more and more. And anyone who's been at Makefield at 6:30 on a Wednesday night would agree with you. But the plan does not just benefit our athletes. It benefits our entire family. My family moved here from New York City when I was in high school. And I don't think I need to tell you the stark difference in environment between the Bronx and here. It was marked. After living away, my husband and I decided to move our family here from Philadelphia for several reasons. It's safe, it's beautiful, and it has good schools. This plan, in my opinion, seeks to uphold all three legs of that stool. By providing more programming, it keeps our kids safe and happy. By preserving more space, it keeps our township beautiful, and the partnership it calls for with the school district benefits every family. I think sometimes there's a feeling out there that by advocating for athletics, it's to the detriment of other considerations like education or the arts or the environment. But this plan that you've developed holds all of it, our schools, the arts, athletics, the environment on equal footing, and really does benefit everyone. So thank you again for this comprehensive and extensive plan for our township, and I hope you vote to implement it.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Step right down. Name and address for the record, please.
Elizabeth Luciano, 1229 Ash Lane. And I hate public speaking.
I believe you sent us an email earlier today.
I did.
I did read it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I did send you all an email today, but I feel this is important enough that I wanted to put my thoughts on the public record as well. I've read the 95-page Play for All report in its entirety, and I urge the board not to rely on this plan while charting our community's future. I understand that time, money, and energy went into this report. But the problem is the report is based heavily on an invalid survey. This was an open access web survey available to anyone inside or outside of the township. Many LNT residents, perhaps even the majority, may not have been aware such a survey was being conducted, let alone a survey with such important implications for the future of our town. For the board to have reliable information, a survey should be mailed to each household in the township and coded to each household so that only township members can respond. That would give the BOS an accurate reading of what residents really need. It would show not only what general interests there are in terms of activities, but the depths of such interests. This board makes long-term financial and land use decisions for our town. And to do that well, you need accurate, verifiable data. And township residents deserve for you to base your decisions on such data. I ask you to do a mailed report and to rely on that as you map out our future. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you again for your comments. Any other public comment? Name and address for the record, please.
Michael Hanson, 13 Houston Road. Chair McCarthy, apologize for speaking out of turn before.
Yeah, no worries.
So anyway, well, I just wanted to restate what I said at the initial meeting. Thought that Monica and Ann did a great job with this report. And, you know, I guess just based on the last comment, you know, if we're talking about keeping costs down, you know, going through a single individual ID mailed survey to every resident seems like quite a bit of money to spend when, and the fact that someone could say the residents shouldn't have been aware. I mean, we had signs every 10 feet as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, I would lobby against spending the postage and the paper and the effort and the money to do that. So, thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Hello. Oop, sorry.
Yeah, you can hold it.
I know I need to raise this a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Don Faust, 1509 Dolington Road. I work for a market research company. So if anybody wants to know what a true market research effort looks like, I'd be happy to help you out. It's not enormous in costs, but it does provide quality data for people to actually make quality decisions. You know, when I looked at the survey, you know, if you hold that to be true, number 4 on the list is football fields or play fields or whatever. So if people want to stick to what's in the survey, then the plan should be built according to what came out of the survey. If you really want quality information, maybe you should do it over so that, as Liz had said, you really know what the residents want and need. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Good evening. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
John is Fafa, 1543 Quarry Road. I was kind of confused on.
If you could just lean forward to the mic a little bit there. Thank you.
I was kind of confused on what we're actually doing at the moment. You said you were going to approve of the play for all. What exactly are we going to be approving today?
So it's the recommendation of the Parks and Recs board, as well as Monica and her team on basically a master plan for how we deal with existing infrastructure, existing fields, Mackles Field, existing assets, including Snipes, and park trails, I imagine as well. So all of that is included, and also maybe there's options with partnering up with the school district for additional assets and field usage. So those are all the key points they're part of that master plan.
So after today's approval, what would be the next step for the next approval?
I can't speak for Monica, but I think that it might be the assessment at Mackles Field.
That would probably be a priority. There is, and do you know what page it's on? A first year, what would happen in the first year plan page in here? And do you know what page that is? So we can direct you right to it. But I know that your concern is Snipes. You've been at meetings before, so I'll cover that. If we were to move forward with Snipes, not saying that that's going to be the first, second, or third thing, but if we were to move forward with Snipes, there'd be a whole process with that. We'd reach out to the local residents, which I believe you live very close or right across the street from the property. We'd have open forums. We'd have at least 2 meetings. That this right here is just saying move forward with that process. That's all that this document says in a public way.
If I could also follow up, if indeed past the public presentation part, there would be an actual application to develop the site. Mr. May mentioned earlier about the variances. Depending on what that plan would be, there may be variances required, which would mean a hearing before the zoning hearing board. There's a requirement in our ordinance that people within a certain radius of the property, and you would be one of them, Mr. May would be one, the Cawleys, Ms. Luciano, Mr. Faust, I don't want to forget anybody, who were affected before would have the opportunity to weigh in and participate in the hearing. If in that, then it would also go to land development, which is a separate but related process. Again, participation in that process would be public and open at a meeting, the Board of Supervisors meeting. So many steps before even we get to that point, and we're not even close to that. This is a conceptual plan to say, what do we need to do potentially? Where do we start? And that's really where we're at. I'm not saying it's not significant. Don't get me wrong, but there's no commitment tonight to anything at any of these sites legally. Okay. So it's good that you're here. It's good that you're informed, but I just want to make sure that you understand that as well.
Dave, if I can ask you a question about that.
Sure.
If funds are allocated at the June 9th meeting towards any specific project, that effectively starts the ball rolling downhill. So at the June 9th meeting, if the board wanted to allocate specific funds towards a specific project, as was alluded to last night, I think it would be important for folks to attend the meeting on June 9th to speak for or against, or however you feel about allotting those funds to specific projects. I know the actual land development process can be quite lengthy, but practical purposes, as soon as funds are allotted, whether it's through sewer funds or through a budget process that goes on in the fall time period, that's effectively when the project gets, I'll say, small a approved to move forward, to get into the spend money on design and everything else. So it's very important that folks pay attention and participate in the funding related meetings that we're having in the near term and during the budget process throughout the latter part of the year.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan. Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I believe Rich said the cost is approximately 40 million. Is that correct?
40 million, no.
No, did I hear
Cost
wrong?
of what? Oh,
Four.
4 million.
4
I
million.
believe that one of the preliminary plans from 4 or 5 years ago for Snipes as developed was in that price range. Since
James, I
that
can give
point-
you a quick background on the
Sure.
couple of the plan, and I promise to be quick. And Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Suzanne, you and I worked on this a little bit to try and. So there was an original plan that was rough, all in was roughly $4 to $4.5 million, which included the lights and a bunch of fields and a large stormwater pond at the corner, and some other mostly field related features. That was done by our old engineering firm. I think with the prior board, that's back when I was on the EAC and I was looking at that. And then when the new board, not James, this is before you got on, came on, we were interested in it. This is 2018, 19 timeframe, I think.
2018.
Thanks, Susan. We looked at trying to consider some of the other improving the design. There was, my opinion, as someone who designed these things, it was a subpar design done by our prior engineering firm. We came up with some ideas to improve it, which included trails, which included more plantings, a few more amenities, better stormwater management, the ability to realign Dolington to be a safer intersection. It just included some of that stuff. And I think just doing that, these are prices, 4 years ago prices that dropped the estimate, $400,000 or $500,000 there to maybe an even 400, which it included all that stuff. That was several years ago. So you can, with the way prices are now, you can assume things have gone up, obviously. And that design as it was probably doesn't fit what more people want these days and what could or should be there after we do a better assessment of Makefield to see what we might be able to do there. And it might be a more cost-effective design that could be done there. So, and I'm not advocating for anything, but I'm just trying to give a little history and sort of scale of what things will likely look like if that development comes before us again.
Yeah, so just to clarify, that was the estimate from 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
18, 19 timeframe. Yeah.
But at that time, though, some preliminary work was done in terms of light pollution studies, traffic studies. Andy worked with Supervisor Blundy and Supervisor Grenier for a number of months on that. And so some of that would inform a future design, but none of that should be considered as, at least from my mind, as an initial design, because obviously what's in this report offers suggestions that people want different things. So I would think, I would hope that my fellow board members, should they want to push for that, would have a timetable that would allow for adequate public input, would also ensure that we also seek state funding or federal funding where possible to reduce the burden on Lower Makefield taxpayers, because there's certainly opportunities there for us to get that. And that's in fact how we got Kiola Fields or the Stoddard Fields complex. So all those things would entail significant time and public notice. Solicitor Truelove mentioned that people would get notified, and they would actually get certified letters if they were within 1,000 feet. So as a result of litigation from the past review of this, we now have, among all municipalities in Bucks County, at least I think we still do, the most aggressive notification processes. That was one of the reforms that we did as part of that, to make sure that people know. And as Supervisor Grenier said, we urge everybody to be involved at every step of the process to provide your opinion. And because I can only speak for myself, but we definitely want to hear people's perspectives and what they're looking for.
And just to let you know, to all those reviews and studies and the environmental studies and the traffic studies, everything that we've done in the past is online on the Play for All planning link under Parks and Recreation. So if you go to Lower Makefield Township Parks and Recreation, there's a Play for All planning. I made a Snipes section because I knew it was of interest. So there's a whole Snipes history section just so you can see historical information about the site.
Okay. I just had one other thing I wanted to read out loud here. When we moved to as in me and my family, to Lower Makefield. The reason we moved here is for the open space, the land. It's obviously very, very nice. It's more of a relaxed neighborhood, I think. A lot of people go out on bikes. I see a lot of people jogging in the mornings. Everyone's up early, pretty active, which is pretty cool. I enjoy that, seeing everybody. It looks like everybody's pretty happy. So that tends to put my mood happy and my family, and I'm liking it a lot. I moved in here in last November. I just wanted to read here. I read here, it says preservation of open space. The permanent protection of our open space is an ideal use of the money. Permanent protection of open space provides all LMT residents both immediate and long-term environmental and financial benefits. Environmental benefits include improved water quality, improved air quality, flood mitigation, wildlife habitat, which is a big one for me, the outdoor recreation opportunities. The financial benefits of protecting open space includes increased property values for nearby residents, lower township taxes, fewer services needed, and lower school taxes, fewer students. The township, since 2019 comprehensive plan states, preserving open areas with the township has been a stated policy for over the past 40 years. The purpose of open space preservations are the protection or increases of property values, the preservation of aspects of the natural landscapes for future generations to enjoy, the enhancement of the community and the protection of public health and safety by restriction development on environmental sensitive lands. I don't know if that's environmental protection land or not. I don't believe it is, but I don't know for sure. But it says here that the space includes increased property values for nearby residents. In the studies you guys mentioned before, said that there was something studied and said that it would improve or increase the values of the properties there, which I don't believe it will. And this states that the opposite. Because of having the open space, that actually improves the property. And I think having fields and all that stuff built just in that section wouldn't benefit me or my family or possibly the residents nearby. I'm all for helping out or improving the other ones that we have. I think that would be great if we can stick with what we have and improve them as much as we can to allow the students that want to play sports or want to be involved in all that stuff. I think that'll be great. And I believe in that. I'm a strong believer in that because, like I said, I have kids. I have 5 kids. So I'm all for improving things for sports and keeping the kids active nowadays and keeping them very busy. Nowadays, all they want to do is play on the laptops or iPads and phones, and it's definitely a different world nowadays. Keeping our kids busy, I think, is very important for them to grow up and stay out of trouble, not getting into trouble or being so bored that you just start looking for trouble. But I just wanted to say, hopefully you guys don't build something, I guess, that statute high where there's thousands or hundreds of games. Hopefully not. But I'm willing to help out or do whatever I can to help you guys come up with something to improve nearby and not necessarily build something there in front of my house and the other residents. The open space is a big reason why we moved here. Houses ain't cheap. So I paid a pretty penny to live here, and I don't want to move. I kind of want to stay here. I have a good school for the kids finally, trying to improve my life and raise my kids well. So that's just how I feel. But like I said, I'm not against what you guys are planning and what you're doing. It seems like you're putting a lot of work into it, a lot of effort. So it seems great, but hopefully nothing goes about or that crazy goes about built in front of the house. 'Cause I think that would deteriorate people from wanting to move here or see a giant field across from their house that they're gonna want to live there or gonna see their quiet weekends with the deers running around. Instead, they're gonna see cars back and forth, people back and forth running around. Just in that vicinity right there, because it's such a big open space. And
Okay. Thank you for the comment.
okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks. That's okay. Thank you. Is there any other public comment regarding this? You could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. George Schleben, 1035 Harvard Drive. And I am also the president of YMS. And I just wanted to thank Monica and Ann once again for all their hard work on this plan. Thank all of you for your input on the plan. Overall, I would just say, I think this is a really comprehensive plan that is accounting for all the needs of the members of this community. I think when I look at this, the YMS community has been pretty active and more active. I think they have been in recent times, and it's a good thing because we want to be collaborative in this process. We're looking to be part of the solution. I think everyone here has valid points, and I think we all want what's best for the community, and YMS wants to be a partner in that with the township and however we want to move forward. Because I think we all can agree that it's time for changes to be made. With that, I feel the need based on some of their statements, made a couple comments about YMS. We are a nonprofit organization. Our focus is building the youth of this community up through teamwork, sportsmanship, hard work. We serve kids from 3 years old to 18 years old, just trying to develop a love of sports and the game of soccer. So any funds we make go right back into those kids and providing great programming for them. For the record, I make $0 at this wonderful job that I do. So, and I love doing it. Because and none of my board members, no one takes a stipend or salary. And the reason for that is it's important that when you're in these roles and running nonprofits, that you're making decisions based on the kids and what the kids needs, and not what my personal need would be. And in this case, certainly I think this plan will meet the needs for our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Schleben, if you,
Yeah, he's
is he still there?
Yep.
Yeah,
Mr. Is my dad. You can call me George.
All right,
ahead.
George. We hadn't spoken before. I just wanted to clarify. You had mentioned that your board members don't take a salary. I just wanted, for
They do
full
not.
disclosure, do you have any paid staff, directors,
do.
coaching or
Certainly.
training
Yep.
or anything like that?
We do have paid trainers. Yep.
Okay. Do any of them have six-figure salaries, since people have thrown those numbers around?
No, they do not.
What's your total payroll? I mean, is that an appropriate question for you to answer?
I don't know at this time. I couldn't give you that number right here.
And you guys have tax returns that have all that information?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Yeah, so you have no idea what you pay your staff?
No, I just don't have that figure handy right now.
Okay.
So I do have an idea, but I don't have it handy. I wouldn't want to quote something that's
But it's just basically staff, trainers, coaches.
staff and trainers coaching.
Okay.
So
Okay.
coaching admin, nothing that it all goes to coaching the kids. That's it.
Okay. Excellent.
Would you
Any
be
other
able to,
questions?
sorry, yeah. And I guess since we're talking about needed extra space specific to YMS, I wanted to congratulate you on the new indoor facility for winter training. I thought that was pretty neat, but where is that? Is that in the township or is that outside the township?
That is in Falls.
Is that the old gymnastics?
Bucks Gym 2? Yep.
Bucks Gym 2, okay.
Yeah, stop down. It looks totally different. It's pretty cool.
I was there for when it used to be gymnastics. I haven't been down since it's been converted.
Yeah.
But okay. And then since Monica's there, how's the fence? Do we have a fence repaired yet?
Yes, our general membership passed approval for funds on the fence, and I hope by the next Parks and Rec meeting I can have an update on where that's at. So
perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for George? Thank you. We're good. Yep, thanks. Any other public comment? Anybody on the phone?
There's no public comment online.
Any other further discussion by any of the supervisors? So I believe we have a motion on the floor to approve the Play for All plan as presented by Monica. I'm going to call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
Next on the manager's report is consideration to approve IT computer network upgrades. Do you want to take that one, Chief? You're on mute, sir. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Look at the bottom of your screen.
There you go.
He's trying to show why we need IT upgrade.
We recently had a study done on the township computer network, and many critical areas were found to need upgrades and hardening. So I'm asking the board to approve engaging in a personal services contract to complete this work, not to exceed $65,000. The work will be done some remotely and some on site.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion? Yes, Dan.
Yeah. Kurt, I'll let you finish chewing. Sorry. Just for clarity, this $65,000 is not in our 2022 budget, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Mr. Chula, given the amount is over 20,000, are we supposed to be putting this out to RFP?
This is a services contract, so it would not be. Plus, I believe one of the exceptions to the normal bid process does involve IT and computer type services as well. So for both reasons, it would not technically be part of that. No.
Okay. Chief, did we, kind of along those same lines, did we put it, I'll say RFP for lack of a better term, but did we issue some sort of RFP to this firm with a bulleted list of items that we needed?
Yes, they had the opportunity to review the report and study that we had done on the system. And I had asked them to give me an idea of the number of hours and the cost to perform those functions. And they did that.
Yeah. Do we know if there are multiple vendors that could provide this service?
I'm sure that there's other vendors that possibility of providing the service. However, these individuals were part of our infrastructure prior, and they also are under an agreement for prior work done. So I think that they're the best source to use at this point.
Okay. And this would be, the money spent would keep them on to perform some list of tasks. I'll use my proposal language. Some list of tasks, and it's not to exceed 65,000. They have a schedule that they need to meet. This is we're not hiring them on to be a permanent IT manager or anything like that, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I say not to exceed 65,000 because there is a range and it may come quite a bit under 65,000, but for purposes of approvals, we need to at least do the 65,000.
Okay. I'm kind of on I'm leaning towards this. I know it's something we need to get done quickly. Sort of on the side, this makes me think that I really want to push at some point soon to hire an IT manager to take this take this out of the hands of outside sources and manage that a little differently in the future, but that's a different topic. I won't go down that rabbit hole.
Well, I completely agree, and we are out there looking for different IT vendors and individuals, whether it's a company or whether it's a one individual, but we're looking.
But this is obviously a different service to be done in the near term.
Yes.
Okay, I have no other, thanks, Chief. I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Yes, Kurt.
The one, I wanted to answer Dan's question specifically, but all I will point out is with the revenue shortfall money that we have from the Rescue Plan Act, we can draw on that money. This would be certainly an eligible expense to offset that cost that the chief had outlined, that even though it was not budgeted for, that those could be dollars that we could allocate for that. We'll put it in the budget. I'm sorry, if this is approved, that'll obviously go in an expenditure and we can look to draw on that money if it's needed.
Any other comments? Any public comment regarding this? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 11, Solicitor's Report, Mr. Truelove.
Yes, a couple things. First, there was an executive session last Thursday, the 26th of May. All supervisors were present along with outside counsel, Mr. Ferguson, to discuss litigation matters. That executive session lasted approximately an hour or so. Tonight, an executive session started at 7 o'clock. All supervisors were present as they were present this meeting, along with Mr. Ferguson, myself, and Chief Galuzzi. Informational items, real estate items, and security items were discussed at that executive session, which concluded just before this meeting started, I believe around 7:35, if I'm not mistaken. First item on the under my report, item A, is the consideration of approved resolution 22-12, ratifying and authorizing the execution of an agreement for post-construction maintenance of a certain trail/walking path along Stony Hill Road across I-295 in Lower Makefield Township, as related to the project known as Prickett Preserve at Edgewood. This is actually something that's a belt and suspenders requirement that we found out after the fact from PennDOT through some of the project staff, that a resolution is required by PennDOT to basically authorize the action we've already taken on this. So we would just ask for the board to approve this resolution, so then we could get this project, at least that part of the project, approved.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. I believe you raised your hand. He beat you by a second buzzer. Any discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. Resolution carries 5-0.
Yeah, thank you. Next, consideration to approve a one-year extension for the swimming pool, snack bar, catering with Cecilia Catering Company through 2023. Little history, I'll try to be brief. Original contract was entered into with Cecilia Catering, I think for years 2018, yes, 2018, 19, and 20. It was renewed for an extra 2 years, or no, I'm sorry, an extended 2 years in January of 2021. And the only term that's really changed at that time was the amount in question that Cecilia would pay the township for the opportunity to participate, which was $6,000 as opposed to, I think the original was $3,000. I believe in all other respects, as I recall, looking at my correspondence from January of 2021, everything else was the same as the original contract, except for that number. There's been consideration, and I understand, not having been at the pool for quite a while since my kids have outgrown it substantially, but that Cecilia has done a very good job there, and people are generally happy with their performance. It would make sense to consider extending that catering contract with Cecilia through next year with the same terms that exist now as indicated. So I guess a motion would be appropriate if that's indeed the sense of the board.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any discussion?
I could ask the solicitor a question.
Sure.
Was the contract holder interested in a longer term, or did they request a 1 year, or did we?
I don't know how this came about. I just, it was given, I think.
I think Monica actually, or Kurt, you might know.
That was a discussion between Monica and the vendor about doing what we're doing right now.
Okay.
I don't know where it initiated. I have no idea.
Okay. The only reason I ask, it's very difficult to find these vendors on this particular one. So I'm strongly, again, everyone has told me how much they've appreciated the snack bar. I've been there a couple times. I know Jim Majewski's a huge fan. So I'm strongly in support of that.
Any other comments? Any public comment? Anybody on the line? It might be Jim.
Yep, no public comment online.
No public comment. Before I take a vote, I still want to push for the Calusi salad. Call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
I'm hungry.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. The Calusi salad must be on the menu.
Next two items are interrelated. You may recall at the last meeting, Kevin Burax, the attorney from Portnoy Law, discussed the proposal to collect delinquent sewer charges. We have before you, we sent to township, I think late last week for then also providing to the respective supervisors. The proposed agreement with Portnoy Law, which is their standard agreement. We had a couple of minor tweaks to it with respect to collecting delinquent sewer charges. Then the other thing was a related delinquent sewer fee collection ordinance, which would be required under the applicable state law to empower the law firm, if indeed they were selected, to proceed accordingly. So, I mean, obviously there's separate motions required, but I want to make sure that you understand they are interrelated.
Does anybody want to make a motion for the first?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion?
Kurt's saying something.
Yes, Kurt.
Only because I would anticipate being asked this. We got an update, Bucks County Water and Sewer has done our billings. And as you know, we're going to have a time where we cut off final collections with them. But the current unpaid delinquent balance is, as of today, $1,184,977. I don't have an exact account number, how many accounts that translates to, but I will tell you roughly it's somewhere around 1,000, give or take 5%, so maybe anywhere from, I'm going to say 1,000, could be in the high nines, could be up to maybe 1,100 or so. I could get that updated number, but the aggregate number is accurate as of today.
Kurt, is that about 8 or 9% of our whole system of all of our users, or is
No, that's about right.
That's all right.
Any other discussion or comments?
So I guess, James, if you don't mind, sorry.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Our other options here, right? Based on the research and some feedback that I've gotten, I'm not totally comfortable with Portnoy. I'll be honest. Same thing I mentioned last time. Nothing has changed, and based on what I've read and spoken to folks. So I'm just wondering, we did some of this in-house a few years back with some success, using the Barbara Kirk's hammer, as I like to call it. I don't know if how many we were able to manage just using that approach last time. But I'd be interested in alternative approaches that gave us a little more control over it and didn't sort of put a law firm to go after our residents, that folks that don't live here, that don't understand who's here.
I guess my only counterpoint to that, Dan, would be we did those methods in the past and it got us to 10% delinquency, right?
I can also answer the issue with Barbara, and I actually spoke about this today because anticipating that question. What her work has done, and she's been good to the extent that she's been able to pursue it once she started that, was to do just lien work. This involves, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds. I know Supervisor Blondie will be horrified when I start talking about the terms in rem and in personam, which are law school terms from our first year. But what that means is there's the lien process. It just goes against the property. Nothing wrong with that. But the only time you get paid is if there's either they pay it themselves or if it's a sale. The process that Portnoy uses in addition to that is the in personam process, which is allowed under the law that's cited in the agreement and in the ordinance. It goes in personam, which means that they actually get a judgment against the individual. So for example, if a ratepayer owns property here and owns a property in the Poconos. I'm not using mine particularly because we're not delinquent, but if you wanted to sell, for example, your property in the Poconos and you had a delinquent charge here, you'd have to pay that charge here before you could do something with your property in the Poconos without some kind of penalty or something like that. So it reaches beyond that. I'm not advocating for or against Portnoy, although I do know that they are well equipped to do this. They've done it in a lot of places. One of our school district clients uses them for delinquent property tax collection. Again, it depends on what you want to do, but they are effective in the sphere that they occupy. The fees that they quote are, in our world, reasonable. And I think their success rate has been pretty good. I'm not going to speak as to what is out there in the ether in terms of their reputation. I don't, all I know is what we in our legal world know, and that's I've not heard anything bad. But again, I'm not out, checking the reputation online or anything like that. I'm just saying, for that purpose, they're well known for at least pursuing this type of action in an effective way.
Sure. John, did you want to add something?
Yeah. Would they be empowered to use the execution sale function to collect debts?
I believe that is part of their, and that's ultimately, I think, to use the phrase that Mr. Grenner used, the hammer that they would have to go with if they had to.
And I believe during his presentation, he said that was less than 1%.
Yeah, it's a very rare option because, I mean, there's the process for what they call serie facius, which is a Latin term. Don't ask me what that means, but there are, a lot of different processes. Is that ultimately, it's potentially, I'm not going to say that couldn't be, but it's really, really rare. Yeah.
So in a past life, I worked for another municipality, and we had over 100% collection of sewer rents. And because we used aggressive execution sales. And what an execution sale is, we get a judgment against the property owner who has not paid their sewer bill, and we're empowered to take their property. And then that was what would happen. Typically, a constable would go with police officers, and if it was a circumstance that they had a car parked out, that just would get towed. Otherwise, you'd have the right to actually enter the premise and select items to cover the cost of the sewer bill. Typically, one would take more than required so that people would come back the next day and pay their sewer bills. The reason I mention this is not to relive wonderful summer days of water ices and execution sales and selecting items, but more to the point that this is a very aggressive collection technique. And given the amount of money here, obviously we won't want to collect all of it. It's a significant amount of money. I too have had folks offer concerns with the suggested vendor. That being said, at the end of the day, I want this money collected, right? Because that money is money that you or your neighbor would have to pay in lieu of someone who didn't pay. And so this is a very difficult circumstance. And, I appreciate the challenges here. In fact, I did suggest considering options like this. So I want people to know that up front. And so my only thought about this, and I think I read the minutes where Supervisor Blundy had suggested that people should pay their sewer bills before this occurs, right? Which was a very strong admonishment. I'm wondering if, with the board's consent, that we delay the effective date of this decision a period of, say, 30 or 60 days. And in the interim, explain to the residents how important it is to pay now, or you will pay later. Because in terms of collections, right, the execution sale is probably the gold standard of making sure that 100% of the money will be recovered, right? And I say this because I want people to know that this is a bill you do not mess with. And if the board takes this decision, and I would be I'm telling you now, I'm open to that decision and making that decision as much as it pains me, but I also want residents to know exactly the amount of power that would be given to this organization to exactly collect the money that is owed.
You're suggesting to have the motion to be amended to have an effective date down the road.
That would be my suggestion. I know, I'm not sure where my fellow supervisors are on this. I mean, I've given it some thought. I can tell you, I'm sorry, I know everybody tells that, and I don't typically suggest that I have particular knowledge of this, but I will tell you, if you take a kid's video game system, that family will be back and will pay in full the next day. Even if it was one of those old, did they have Nintendo 8-bit back then? I don't remember. Was it 1990? Okay.
NES.
NES, right. Or their bike, right? That's what an execution sale is. It is very serious. And I want residents to know that this is one bill you have to pay as soon as possible. Please, please do not call or email me after the effective date. So I'm hopeful that perhaps my fellow supervisors would be amenable to a delayed effective date. Like August 1st, well, we get a little more than that, maybe.
Well,
60 days.
But I think that the August 1st then initiates the law firm of starting their process, which probably is another 60 or 90 days past that, right? Yeah.
Right. And
just a warning shot essentially is what is.
James?
Yes, sir.
Just so you're aware, as we presented, Bucks County Water and Sewer is now done taking payments. We extended them. We got an extra 30 days from them to collect that. So we're basically sitting there with those files, right? Which was why we were trying to get this on for this meeting to get going. So at this point, we do not have a collection agent that would be available to take those payments.
And Kurt, I guess the question is, and I just refresh my memory, when he gave the presentation, there is a steps process as far as an initial contact, 30 days, 60 days, and I believe it wasn't until 90 days. And during that first 3 months, the individual has the opportunity to, if there's a hardship, that they can try to work out some kind of deal with the
Of course they can. The fee, I think, that was discussed, and again, there'll have to be an ordinance that we pass, and whether there's an accompanying resolution with fees. I think in the first pass, as far as making a payment, the fee would be $25.
That's what I remember.
I'm not minimizing $25, but I am saying, when they go for that collection, it's not like if someone owes $500 or $1,000 and they're on hard times, they're demanding that money. They would take payments, and as long as those payments were met on the terms that were set with the company, then additional fees would not accrue or compound. They would have set that in at that fee, and on the initial pass, which I think I'm correct, was $25.
I think you were right with the 25.
If I could jump into, there is in the proposed contract under 4D, requirement for the township to adopt a policy whereby requests for hardship exemptions can be properly evaluated, and PLA will assist upon request in the establishment and administration of such a policy without additional charge. So we could just ask them for a policy to address that hardship issue if that indeed becomes.
And also, and I'll let you speak, just the feeling that I got from the presentation was that they just want an open line of communication with these folks first to kind of get the ball rolling. So I think that that's probably that period that you're looking for.
Do we have a mechanism?
Hold on one sec, Kurt. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Township Manager Ferguson, do we have a mechanism to accept payment now if someone walks in the door?
No. Today was May 31st was the last day of payment.
And plenty of letters were sent to these individuals, correct?
Correct. But can I also point out one more thing, just so the board is aware? Since the first quarter of 2020, with the pandemic, as you'll recall, one of the first things that we did that we recommended to the board was that all late fees, all compounding fees were all waived. And those fees have continued to be waived. So objectively, if someone has not paid their sewer bill, as an example, let's say for 2 years, they would not have had attached to their account late charges, fees, or anything of that sort for the last 2 years. It would just be a principal payment multiplied by the last 8 quarters with no charges on them whatsoever.
And that was clearly communicated to those individuals as well, correct?
Correct. If you look at your bill now, your last number of bills from the township, you will see that all of that's been waived and it's a due amount. And if you didn't pay, even your second quarter would just be, the next quarter would just be a combination of the two. We announced that back during the pandemic. You know, this is the thing. I mean, Bucks County Water and Sewer sends notices out and takes calls. And they did confirm with us, BCWSA, you know, over the last year or so, if we were going to continue with that practice, and we, at that time, I had just continued that practice, that charges and fees would not be placed on those accounts. While
And Kirk, just
we're
off the
still
top
suffering
of your
those
head, and I don't
hardships.
want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Roughly how much in late fees did we essentially waive through that program?
Probably, I would guess 20%,
So about 200,000 on top of that.
probably, yeah.
Okay, Dan, did you want to add to it?
That's actually great information. Are we still, just to clarify, Kurt, are we still in that period of no late fees, no interest, all that stuff?
No,
Correct.
I think yesterday
Now,
was,
but let me go back in. If someone would have had a delinquency, let's say from 4 years ago that they hadn't paid, there would have been fees on that. But the outstanding balances that picked up from that quarter of March of 2020, there would have been no additional charges. So yes, if you haven't paid for 8 quarters, it would just be the total of those 8 quarters, whatever the base amount.
It's all principal. Yeah.
Those times, yes.
and Dan,
And-
just
and-
to Dan, just real quick to clarify, no, we're no longer doing that program anymore because they stopped accepting payments as of yesterday.
Well, and
but-
that that's my next question. So if
But-
someone is late, someone didn't pay yesterday, right? So they're technically late on, let's say this is 1 payment or 2, whatever
Yeah.
it is. Something happened, they missed the day. They have
Yeah.
no way to pay until something is set up. Are they going to get late fees because they missed?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm-
So John, Dan, let's pretend those 8 quarters, your bill was $1,200, the base bill. The amount that's getting turned over is $1,200. There is no we're not back feeing what they would have been charged in fees. It's going to be that aggregate amount, base amount, no fees or charges for any of those 8 quarters being turned over.
For the record, I'm not asking for myself. I'm just curious about other people in that situation.
And it would be $1,225, right, Kurt?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
So.
That's right.
We have the list of the folks who are delinquent that we would be passing over, right?
We have the accounts, yes.
If is there a way, and I know typically the other way, I want to reach out to these people and explain exactly what's happening, because I don't want unhappy folks to come visit the township offices, even though in this case, they're not necessarily the finest folks in terms of paying their bill. But would it be appropriate to suggest a marketing effort, if you will, or collection effort that says, hey, as soon as you get this from Fortunoff, sorry. Yeah, it's a little different, jewelry versus, as soon as you get this, you should pay, because it is going to be really expensive and painful going forward. And I want to, and I know people won't listen, but if everybody could just take Supervisor Blundy's advice and pay that bill as soon as it comes, trust me, you do not want an execution sale. You do not want the fees added. These folks are the most, more than Barbara Kirk, they're pretty aggressive in terms of collecting.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
This is what they do.
It's never a fun decision.
James?
Yeah, sure.
So if I can answer Supervisor Lewis's point with Portnoff's letter that'll go out will explain that. It will explain what the process is and that this can be resolved, and they'll set up payments. As far as, our sewage person that we had, Adrian has retired. Again, we're talking 1,000 or 1,100. I mean, I'm happy to sit and craft something that the board can look at, that we can have put on our homepage, telling people, if you haven't paid, this is coming. There's a chance to avoid a lot of costs and stress by setting up a payment plan, and that a letter from Portnoy, we could coordinate with Portnoy to have an idea of when they would send those letters out. So we could put that like on the website in advance of that with some context to say, if you haven't paid, be looking for this letter the week of whatever, to help.
Kurt, I love that idea. It not only to advertise it, but also, if you're getting a letter from some law firm in the mail that you don't recognize, it's a good chance it's just going in the recycle bin.
Dan, and we could run that same sort of notice on the TV channel as well, for people who might be more inclined to have the local channel on versus going online as well. We could do that as well.
Okay.
And actually, since I'm in the marketing business, it would be lovely if we could actually videotape an execution sale so that people knew exactly what's going to come, because it is
He is
not.
really worried. It's not fun.
It's not fun,
No,
right?
I
And
can
it's
imagine
coming.
it's not fun.
It was volunteering.
Huh?
It was volunteering.
I've gone on many, so
I mean, on the other side.
Oh, on the other side, we would just take one from another municipality. It's been previously done, but I just,
Yeah,
I mean, but John, to address Supervisor Lewis's concerns and Supervisor Grenier's, I think all of these things that we have done, we have displayed enormous flexibility. Notices have gone out, right, from Bucks County Water and Sewer for delinquent accounts. We can sit and continue to do this from Portnoy, put something on there, to do everything we can to reason with people, to take care of this quickly. And I think Portnoy's presentation that they made at the last meeting indicated when people get a letter like this, to Supervisor Lewis's point, they tend to, a majority tend to take care of this quickly after getting that notice. So we can.
Yeah, I was pleased with the numbers he gave us. I think that they were decent. So we have the motion on the floor. Is there any public comment regarding this? Yes, sir. Step up to the microphone, name and address for the record, please.
Zachary Rubin, 1661 Covington Road. In the agreement, do they work on a percentage what they collect, or is it an hourly rate? How do they get reimbursed?
It's actually in the ordinance. You would see that separate, that there's actually proposed fee schedules depending on the type of activity that's engaged. The only place where you would see an hourly rate is over and above the multiple items of activity that would take place during this, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of the process. I mean, we're talking way down. I mean, the ones, here's an example near the bottom. Present petition for free and clear sale. That's of a sheriff's sale. So that's how far you go.
Yes,
Kurt,
Suzanne.
well, I mean, I'm looking at it too, but Kurt, I see you waving furiously, so.
No, I just want to make sure we're clear that part of their presentation was, to Mr. Rubin's point, that the charges that would be incurred would not be charged to the township as a whole.
Correct, yes.
Setup charge, but all fees would essentially go to the ratepayers.
Yep.
So, if Portnoy got 100% collection on all the delinquent amounts, other than the setup fee, they'd get $25 an account. Because the ratepayer would be paying it and not the township as a whole.
All right, well, thank you. And also, is this a typo? Because if people are complaining about the collection, should it be Portnoy's complaint and not Portnoy? Just a question.
It's a Philip Roth reference. I get it.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Anybody on the telephone?
No public comment online.
Okay. No other comments? I called a question. All those in favor of consideration to approve the agreement with Portnoy Floyd to collect delinquent sewer charges, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Reluctantly.
Opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0.
And then the companion motion would be to approve the advertising for delinquent sewer fee collection ordinance. So we just advertised it tonight, and obviously it would not be enacted, which kind of goes to your point, Supervisor Lewis, that the process doesn't start tomorrow. And that includes, as required under the applicable act, the fee schedule that was referenced earlier.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any discussion? Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Thank you much. Called a question. All those in favor to approve the advertisement, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Yeah, the last two items under my particular report, although I do have other things I'll be talking about after that with respect to zoning hearing board and Mr. Janakova's development, are under E and F respectively. Mr. Ferguson's contracted services consulting agreement and Mr. Huckabridge's contracted services consulting agreement. Brief background for the public. Mr. Ferguson, your last day here, Kurt, will be the 18th. Is that correct? Last day physically is the 5th, I believe, but it's your contract
July.
runs till July.
Last day physically would be the 4th, and then
4th. Okay.
and then the actual last day, per what you had said, yes, is correct.
Okay, and then Mr. Huckabridge's last day is June 17th. So so the purpose of
correct.
these two agreements, it's for essentially ad hoc work. It's not for them to be permanently employed thereafter as a second job, but to help in the transition for some pretty significant items related to their ongoing work now. Some have been listed and enumerated in the respective agreements. For each, I can talk about those, although the board certainly is familiar with those. And they both deal with issues that are ongoing now and would require, hopefully, their input and respective hourly fees for both for the work to be done. I'll just leave it to the board if they want. First, we'd have to consider, again, separately like the prior items, a motion to approve Mr. Ferguson's contracted services consulting agreement for purposes of having a discussion of same.
At this time, I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion?
So,
Yes, Dan.
yeah,
Sorry,
what is the rate, the hourly rate here?
For Mr. Ferguson, it's $100 an hour.
And that's an increase over the effective hourly rate at the current salary, correct?
I did not do the math on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's a straight financial calculation, yes, if you count pay and benefits as they were currently outlined, as they're currently provided to employees overall, it would be less. But as a straight dollarly comparison, salary for hourly rate, if you break it down, it would be more.
Okay. Do we have a not to exceed amount of hours or overall budget number written in here?
No.
Okay. So my issue here is one, not to get off, I don't want to get off subject, but we have a couple things. One, we've known that Kurt's leaving now for about 3 months, and we are behind the 8 ball in terms of getting someone in. So I would hope that we can get that done immediately, and if not, get an interim township manager to be here during the day. As we know, I believe this agreement is for after 6 p.m. and on the weekends only, which makes it very difficult for our staff who don't work after 6 p.m. to interact. It's just not a great situation for anyone involved who has to get anything done when it's only a night and on the weekends. I mean, I'm not trying to, it's just the way we all work. So that's one issue I have. I know the other one, when Kurt, when you were doing this similar work at Newtown, I just kind of skimmed it to see how many hours you ended up having to work for them. It was about 350 over about 10 months. So for that,
No, it would have been less than that.
your last invoice was June 7th of 2019. I went through and grabbed them all. I have all 10 months worth. It added up to 351.5 hours. At $75 an hour, that was over 26,000. So if we did it, if we're at that, just as point of reference, if we're at that same volume, that's over $35,000 at $100 an hour over an extended period. I don't want it to go that long for everyone's benefit. hopefully
I
we have
don't want it to
time.
go that long for my own.
This,
I
this
hear you.
this contract does end this calendar year unless extended, so just for
Good.
everybody's benefit.
So,
Yep.
so that's basically what I want to do is put some governors on that and this isn't an attack on you, Kurt. This is specifically
All
to
right.
make sure we don't extend anything too far and end up getting stuck because we're trying to do too many things at once. So I like the fact that this ends at the end of the year. I would prefer that we put a cap on it, not to exceed, that we could increase over if we reach that cap. And I'd say a round cap of $10,000, which is that's a lot of hours there to assist with some things, especially when it's sort of a part-time gig. And then the other thing, I would also push, just for everyone's covering ourselves, and Kurt, for covering yourself. I know in your new contract you have a term that puts Upper Dublin first, as it should, and limits some of what you can do so that there's no conflict between your outside work and your inside work with the township. So I would want some confirmation from Upper Dublin that they're okay with this agreement. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then I won't be able to vote for it, because I think we need to move. I think, one, we need to move forward with the township manager. We've lost the key personnel. We need to replace them. We're 3 months behind getting that started. And I think we need to make sure that we put a governor on it so that we are sort of inspire ourselves or force ourselves to fill the position sooner rather than later. Because if we don't put a not to exceed amount on it, it has the tendency to just keep going, and that can get out of hand. So
I'm just going to ask everybody one more time. I've tried before, but Kurt resigned in the beginning of April. I don't know what kind of math anybody wants to do, but that's 2 months.
no,
And
he told us all the
there's
first week of
something
March.
in the world
Every
right
single
now where
person's the
people
first
like
week of
to-
March. I want to make sure everybody knows that. We've
No,
known since the first week of
No,
March.
that's what he informed us. That's when he informed us that he was looking at another position. He did
He
not
informed us he was
resign.
taking another
Dan,
job.
Dan,
I am
he did not
100%
resign.
correct.
Well, the public record is what it is, but we can be like the people on the news and we can just make up things and hope the township can follow along with the facts. But all that being said, I appreciate your points. As the maker of the motion, assuming you were asking me to consider an amendment, I do not accept it. Next.
Any other discussion?
Any member can make an amendment. So if I wanted to, first off, Solicitor Truelove, you had mentioned that there was limitations on the hours. Those,
No.
okay,
no,
so
no.
they're not in the agreement.
No.
So that would have to be in the agreement to make it in concert with Upper Dublin, or I guess it wouldn't have to be, would it? Or would it?
I mean, that's not for us to decide, frankly. If that's between Mr. Ferguson and Upper Dublin. So.
Yeah, so I would just make a motion to amend section 4 of the term. This engagement shall commence upon execution of this agreement and shall continue in force until such time as 100 hours, or 10,000 is 100? 100 hours, or the later, or December 31st, 2022.
So again, that'd have to be whether the maker of the motion accepts the amendment. So that's where.
And before I go to her, Kurt, did you want to add anything?
I do. I do. Respectfully, with what's outlined in that contract, if you want me to follow that, if that's the will of the board, I just want to remind you, even if you hire a manager tomorrow, you have 30 accounts in this township, right? Whether people like it or not, whether people who call and say I've done terrible things or not. For me, it's not about the money. I have worked as the finance director here for the last 4 years, frankly, and saved the township close to $600,000 by willingly taking that role on. The obligation I feel in terms of assisting is to make sure that the accounts, the audit, the pension audit, the Moody's review, the police contract, where there's serious issues to be discussed that will be ongoing. Listen, we could get the police contract squared away in 2 or 3 meetings. I can tell you with certainty that will not be the case, where we could have negotiations going on for Saturday for hours and hours. And if we're going to put a 100-hour cap on it, and I'm going to tell the union at 10:30 I have to stop because I have a 100-hour cap, I'm not sure the value in that. Newtown at the time of that Mr. Grenier, Supervisor Grenier presented, asked me to continue. I wasn't looking to milk anybody. I'm not looking to milk anybody now, but there's a variety of things going on that if you were to ask to pin me down, how many hours do I think that could take? It could vary. I couldn't imagine it would be more than 10 hours a week during the budget time that's coming up. If I'm to assist in that and assist Allison in that, that would be more labor intensive to make sure she's up to speed. Your manager's up to speed, all the accounting for the rescue plan money. I'll manage it however you want. I'm not looking at this as some lucrative endeavor. I'm just looking to sit and help the staff that's here that I've been committed to taking on these 2 roles for 4 years to do that. And frankly, Supervisor Grenier, if you'd asked me for that, I'd have given you all that information. I have it on my laptop. I would have given you all my hours and how much I made and the time that I did. So I'll do whatever the board wants. I want to help. If the board wants me to help, I want to help. If you don't, it'll make my life easier. So that's up to all of you, whatever you want to do.
Supervisor Blundy, did you want to amend your motion?
No, and just to
Okay.
be clear, I am looking forward to Kurt helping us, and I'm hopeful that he will be able to help us until we find a new manager. So
Only because I'm sure this is going to be reviewed. I do want to say one more thing. I have discussed this with Upper Dublin. I discussed this when they selected me, that the board would ask. What clearly I could never be involved with here would be anything that had to do with going for grants or things that would contradict the responsibilities that I have there. So I would not be able to participate in grant applications or submissions or anything that would be indirectly, potentially in competition with that new position. It's the same understanding that I had with Newtown when I helped there. And I would, those are sort of the boundaries that we set there, would be to assist staff with what we've talked about, what's outlined in the agreement. And going forward, that would be limited to that. I would personally not want to continue beyond the end of the year. I would not anticipate clearly coming anywhere near the number that was in Newtown because it went on much longer. But I would imagine in the end, especially with staff that's reached out to me about certain things coming up, particularly in finance, that I could not reasonably see that exceeding any more than 8 or 10 hours a week under almost all circumstances. That's all.
thank you, Kurt. And thank you for being willing to help us out.
Sure.
I made an amendment to the motion, but the amendment was never seconded. Doesn't have to be friendly or not. It could just be, I'd like to amend the contract, and no one seconded it that. So I want that clear. If someone wanted to second that for discussion, that's an option. If they don't, that's fine as well.
I mean, technically, there's a motion pending on the floor, but if there's discussion about your proposed amendment, that's
Yeah,
certainly.
and I think we've had that. As it relates to this particular contract and circumstance, my concern is that we're not in a good position right now to find a replacement in a relatively short time period. The best that we can do is immediately seek an interim manager. JPM, who is the firm that we've asked to help us with the search, has helped us find Chief Coluzzi, has interim manager services. I don't think any of us wants to burden Kurt on his weekends and nights unnecessarily, but we desperately need to make sure we have a transition plan in place. And a situation where we're constantly relying on a contractor who couldn't be here during the day is detrimental to the residents. And so that's the primary reason why my concern is the case. Like I said, I'm open to working through that, but that's my main concern. And the best case, it will take us, for those who participated in the past, 6 months to find a new township manager. It could take that long. In that time period, I don't want us to be without support that we need during primary business hours. And I don't want to place Township Manager Ferguson in a difficult spot with his future employer, nor do I want staff to have to be working, and many of them do work nights and weekends, but I don't want them to have to deal with that, which is my way of suggesting if the makers of the motion won't accept any compromise on this, I do think that we desperately need an interim manager sooner rather than later.
I am happy to talk about that. I think it's great that you guys are bringing it up tonight. And I think it's something we should talk about, but if we could just stick to the motion for now and get that up or down and then move forward. Yes, Kurt. I mean,
The only
James.
thing I would point out respectfully, not to put him on the spot or contradict anything Supervisor Lewis just said about his concerns, is that Chief Coluzzi, which would be typical, and it's been in other towns I've seen as well, essentially would serve in that capacity as an interim manager, seeing that he has relationships with the department heads, particularly Public Works, Fire, with the Fire Services Director, they already are meeting, and with department heads in those other places, and frankly, every other department that we have, including finance, since they're the biggest part of the budget, that the chief acting in that interim role, even if the board wants to have this discussion about an interim manager in the future, I don't think things would be languishing there. Ken does have the benefit of a command staff that assists him with police related work, and his ability to address issues as they come up. He and I have talked about that, that he'd be able to do that. And again, after 6 o'clock or a weekend call, like we talked about, if there's things that come up, where does this go? Has this come up before? Do you have a file on that? I wouldn't be actively managing. I would be assisting with those things. And so in the interim, after July 4th, 5th, he certainly is fully capable of handling that for the time being.
Kurt, you make great
Chief,
point.
are
That
you-
my- oh, sorry.
I just want to, real quick, Chief, I just want to confirm that, this is something that you're comfortable with.
Unmute there, Chief.
Spacebar,
Yeah,
Chief.
he's got it.
Yeah, as Kurt said, I mean, it's pretty typical in most towns. And that's the way it was in Newtown before Kurt came, that I believe the chief was a manager there for over a year or so, wasn't he, Kurt, before you were?
Pasqualini, probably six to 8 months. Yeah.
Right. And it's not that I'm looking for a position, but I'm certainly here. And as Kurt said, I do have the relationships and I do have the working knowledge, and I've worked closely with Kurt. So anything that I may need or anything that the board may need, I could address that. And also I have access to Kurt 24/7. And if he can't be here, he could certainly advise me on where things are, where files are, and how to maneuver through things. So we'll be working closely together anyway on the police negotiations, on the budget, upcoming budget. So it makes sense, but it's up to you. It's up to the board.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Respectfully, I would like to entertain the motion of looking at JPM and giving us an interim township manager. And the reason I say that is with Chief Luzzi has important work in public safety. It's an area where it's very important to us, and we also are understaffed in other areas. So if we could have somebody who could help us in those areas and help in that process, it's an area where I know that we could do well. JPM, again, they have a multitude of different people to choose from. So they could give us 3 or 4 folks. We could look over the resumes relatively quickly, talk to them, get somebody online so that, again, that we have support during the day on a go forward basis. So to me, that's, and I don't know where you are, or Chair McCartney, but it's an
Hey, John.
important issue.
John, I don't disagree with you, but to Suzanne's point, it probably is a good idea to have up or down vote on this particular motion, and then have a discussion about exactly what you're talking about. Because I think there's some other issues we could discuss too after we get through this one related to that. I don't know. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it just.
It's possible. My concern is that debate would be restricted, and in this case, it really should be discussed fully in an open session.
Yeah.
I would be. if the chair would allow us to discuss that upon completion of this discussion item, then I would be okay with standing
Point of
down.
order, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
This topic of an interim manager is not on the agenda, is not suitable for discussion, or maybe suitable for discussion, but not for consideration because of the sunshine law, and it is not relevant to this motion on the table. So I would therefore ask that we continue with, if there's no further
Okay.
comment on the motion on the table, I would suggest that we ask for public comment at this time, and then we could ask for the question.
Yeah, so I think that's the best approach, is to table that suggestion. For
Well, no.
You can discuss it tonight, the issue then. In fact, if you want to put that under discussion items, you can do that. But to Supervisor Weiss's point, the new Sunshine Act requirements would not allow that to be on the agenda to vote on tonight.
Right.
But if you wanted to discuss it tonight and then asked for it to be put on the agenda for the meeting on the 15th, you could do that.
Okay.
Would you be amenable to that?
Let's get it. When we get to the discussion items, we'll talk about it.
So you're saying you consider the discussion item?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
So we have a
right now is
motion on the
just- yeah.
floor, consideration to approve Kurt Ferguson's contracted services consulting agreement. I believe Supervisor Blondie made the motion, Supervisor Weiss seconded. Do we have any public comment? State your name and address for the record, please.
Zachary Rubin, 1661 Covington Road. I rise to a point of order, and that refers to John's original tried to make an amendment. Now, an amendment to a main motion is a subsidiary motion, which is in order, has nothing to do with the maker of the main motion. And if you check Roberts, there's no such thing as a friendly amendment, period.
Friendly.
Okay, so therefore, an amendment is in order if it's recognized by the chair, if it's properly seconded. It has nothing to do with the maker of the main motion. So in the future, let's follow Robert's Rules of Order in this proceedings. Thank you.
Nothing
Thank you,
was-
sir.
So can we just? move
Any
on?
other public comment? Is there anybody on the phone that would like to comment?
No public comment online.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-2.
Okay, the next item under the Solicitor's Report would be consideration to approve Greg Hucklebridge's contracted services consulting agreement. It's very similar to Mr. Ferguson's agreement, except that the hourly rate is $75 per hour, and some of the specific tasks are different because they're related specifically to Mr. Hucklebridge's work. He did communicate with me during the last discussion that he has already checked with Northampton, and they are fine with the agreement in terms of the structure and the hours. So.
Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make
So
a
moved.
motion
I believe Mr. Lewis was making the motion. Do you
Yeah.
want to finish it?
that we approve the agreement with Mr. Hucklebridge, subject to the removal of an extraneous symbol on section 6.
Section 6.
Yeah, under termination cancellation.
Oh, I see.
There's a
There's a paren. Yeah, that's fine. Sure. We can do that.
Second,
So motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion? Yes, Dan.
My understanding, Kurt, I think you're the one that posted. My understanding is that the job posting for a new Public Works Director was posted May 16th is the date I have in my head, with the close date the 10th of this month. Is that? So I'm wondering, have we received resumes to date? I think you're I was looking at the ICMA website today to see what's been posted. And I believe you're the contact person. So have we received resumes to date for that position?
Handful,
Five-ish?
about a half a dozen.
Okay. That's moving on a different time frame. So it's a different conversation, it's a different time frame. That one sounds like it could be filled sooner. So it's a different feel to it. And he has the same, Mr. Hucklebridge is a resident of Lower Makefield, so he's local all the time.
not when he's at work. He's not local when he's at work.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I'll forward you the email from Mr. Chulov about his conversations with Mr. Ferguson about when he let him know he was leaving the township. That was early March. So
Dan,
Relate-
just to be clear, because I am like a little like nutty, right? Yes, everyone should know that Kurt told us he was looking at another job, but he
not
resigned.
looking, he had accepted.
No, that he was being interviewed. So
Words
he had not
matter.
resigned. He had not resigned. And I'm sure anyone who's ever left a job on their own volition knows that you do not resign until you send the letter. So we can go back and forth on the word game. You say March, I say April. The record says April. That's when his letter was accepted. But it is so hard for me when I look at you guys and when I talk to our neighbors that we sound very much like the national news that we all say we hate. And we're all going to spin and we're all going to, do
There's
whatever.
no spin here,
make our
Suzanne.
point of view.
There was
is.
a
There
was a
is. It
verbal
was a letter of
indication, much like a verbal contract,
Right, but
a
will you
verbal indication
please
of when he was
acknowledge
leaving.
the letter of resignation is dated April, and that's when it was accepted. And that we in fact put the process in place that we are looking for a supervisor, a township manager, all that is in place. You know that, we're doing the best we can, trying to move forward. Let's just be kind to each other as best we can, and if we can't be kind, let's be quiet.
Oh, there you go. Anywho, so I think this is a different situation with a very technical set of skills, where I believe this.
Sorry, what? You don't think the township manager has?
Would you please stop interrupting me and act professionally?
You would stop
You are so
slighting our staff,
snarky.
because all I do is go around and apologize to our
Chair,
staff.
would
for
you
what
would
we
you
say
please
about them.
mute the supervisor who's speaking out
Oh
of
my
turn?
God, don't you dare
I am-
say that.
I am
Don't you dare.
so. This is a constant where she loves to interrupt when we're telling the
It's not a
truth
constant.
about
Okay,
certain
Dan,
items.
can you just
When
get
you
to your
tell the
point
truth.
regarding?
I'm
Greg
trying
and-
to, but I keep getting interrupted by someone
Okay.
that insists on speaking over me.
Okay.
So if you could please, I will stop if you would like to address the supervisor and ask her to allow me to finish my statement.
Adjectives and false statements and go, and I will
See
mute
what I
again
mean?
and try to stay quiet.
Go ahead if you want to finish your question regarding Mr. Hucklebridge, Dan.
So where I was going before I was interrupted was that an engineer who runs our public works department has on the ground needs and skills that other staff cannot do. There's a very specific skill set, right? My understanding is his contract ends as well at the end of the year. Is that correct statement?
Right, yes.
This one is $75 an hour versus the $100 an hour. Is
Correct.
that also a correct statement?
Yes.
We don't, this one does not have a not to exceed amount.
Correct. It is in all respects identical to Mr. Ferguson's, except for the hourly rate and for the identified tasks, including but not limited to. There's some overlap about the budget, but there's other things about MMA reconciliation. I'd have to look at it specifically, but there are some things that are different. But in terms of the overall form, it's identical to Mr. Ferguson's. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly specific to his tasks, as you would expect in the Public Works Department, but talks about MMA reconciliation of fees and charges, assisting with current projects and expenditures, which is not unlike something in Mr. Ferguson's contract. Coordinating staffing needs with Public Works Department and other departments is needed. That's more specific to him. Assistance with the formation of the 2023 budget. That would be very similar to identical to Mr. Ferguson's. And then the last, assistance with Aqua regarding sewer facilities and delinquent billing for the township, because he does have specific knowledge about that, and that is more specific to his contract. But that's, again, including not limited to.
Thank you, Dave.
Does that include attendance at our township meetings to provide feedback to the board? I'm trying to figure out how they communicate to the board what they're doing if they're only here after hours and on the weekends. That's a tough one to understand how we.
There's nothing specific about that. It doesn't say they're precluded from doing that, but there's nothing specific in that, no.
Okay, so how are they going to be directed in certain work, and how are they going to deliver their work products?
Kurt, if you want to answer that question.
There's not necessarily going to be a work product, right? So let's take Greg with MMA. If Greg is reconciling accounts as part of trying to close out that issue, it's going to be coordinated with attorneys. If Greg is called by, for example, Andy, asking a particular question of a project or something as far as what he had done, much of that communication could be emails. It's not going to be like a project, for the most part, a project-oriented report writing sort of position. It's going to be there to assist, to help close things out, or be there to provide guidance, whether that be to a new public works director, whether that be to the engineer or Jim Majewski, what have you. So I would know, but I would imagine then that there would be a bill that he would provide, that if he said he spent an hour doing something, he would outline conversations with Jim Majewski and Andy Pokel, or discussions with MMA attorneys or Hill Wallach attorneys regarding MMA reconciliations that would be descriptive enough so the board understood what that time was spent on.
So and thank you for that, Kurt. My concern is how we manage and oversee and verify billings. Are we going to need, sometimes when we're trying to get questions answered, we need 3 votes from the board to get a question answered, because it might mean that someone's going to spend money, right? If I wanted to get a question answered by PFM, I'm told I needed three votes from the board to get a question answered. So I just want to understand, as someone who manages contractors that are time and materials not to exceed, typically, when I check their invoices, what their hourly rates are and what they're billing us, I need to be able to compare that to something to verify things. Not saying that these folks are trying to lie to us or bilk us or anything. It's just being responsible about our billings to understand what they're billing us and what we're getting for the bills.
And just to add clarity around that, Dan, I don't know if this helps answer your question. I don't think we're looking this as a contractor status as much as we're looking at it as a consulting status. So I think it's a little bit of a different.
To me, it's the same thing. Because, for example, if when we talk about budget issues, right? When whoever's working on the budget, I think when you first started, there were comments like, I spent 700 hours on the budget in the first 6 months, right? That's not an exaggeration. That's a quote. So like, we need to know if we don't want anyone spending 700 hours on anything in the first 6 months. That's basically a full-time job on one thing, right? We just need to know how that's allotted. So like a consultant, I'm a consultant. Technically, I have to bill every hour of my day, and I put a comment dictating every 15 minutes sometimes. Dave knows what this is like as an attorney, obviously. So it's the same thing, whether you're called a consultant or a contractor, you're still doing that if you're billing on an hourly rate. So we just have to be able to check that against something is what I'm getting at. Whether it's 10 hours or 100 hours.
Yeah, I'm sure that both, we could devise a timesheet to be acceptable to everybody, just for the fill out the time, so they could say, and have a description of the work for the time spent, on a Saturday in August. Mr. Ferguson spends 2 hours consulting with finance staff regarding budget issues related to the PBA contract, for example, or something. I'm just throwing that out there because, as to your point, I have to fill out timesheets, and we do it electronically all the time. I can do it off my phone, actually. So, but that's, I think that's something that can be worked out. I mean, would be, and I obviously we want to make sure, and I'm not worried about either one of these two gentlemen adequately filling that out, but we do have to make sure we have a mechanism that accomplishes that. I would agree.
It is, and Jane, one last question. Kurt had mentioned he's thinking 8 to 10 hours a week, something like that. Is that what we're anticipating for Greg as well? I wouldn't want him to be putting in an additional 48, I don't want him working another job. He's got a young family. I wouldn't want to put that stress on him.
He wouldn't be able to have that stress. Even if he wanted to work that much, he wouldn't be able to do that. I would imagine Greg would probably be, for the most part, maybe 5 hours a week, but there may be other weeks. I'll take MMA, for example, where if he's reviewing a reconciliation pile this big, which it is, he might have a week that he decides he wants to spend 8 hours on Saturday to plow through it, that he might have a week where he has 12 hours or 13 hours in pursuit of finalizing that for the township. So in the end, I understand the desire to manage the hours or to have our hands around that. I want to point out, like 700 hours with the budget, which was a quote, was when the budget was 762 pages long and in 2 big binders, and paring that down. That would clearly not be the case now. For me, Greg, that's going to be limited to those sorts of things. And I would imagine Greg, like, I want to make sure we answer this. Like, if staff, whether that be a new public works director with Greg or Allison in finance, has a question about an expenditure, a lease payment on a public works vehicle, that they would be free to email Greg saying, what should I do with this? Or where is this? That Greg would communicate back, whether that's, 15 minutes at a time or something, to answer those questions. So the flow of work is not interrupted. While it's hard to put a specific time on that. Again, I can't imagine that being more than typically 5 hours a week or so for Greg.
And Kurt,
That's what I was
just real
thinking.
quick,
Kurt. Thank you.
I just had a quick question. How many of these transitions have you gone through from a manager standpoint laterally?
Me personally?
Yeah, I mean, you went from Newtown here, you were with another township before that.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as continuing on, this would be the second time I have done that. And
Okay.
positions I have not done that. The management staff was a bit deeper, so there was more of an opportunity to have someone who was in place. And in Newtown's case, they did have an assistant manager that was not an experienced manager, and they asked me to stay on to assist him. He's still the manager to this day, 4 years later. So, and
Okay.
that was an assistance with that. So,
Yeah, no, it's just I'm pointing out that you have some experience in this transition stage from one position to another, one municipality to another. I think the chief has some experience in dealing with these transitions, and that you guys have a solid game plan as we move forward in this transition and helping us find a new township manager. So there's experience there. I'm pretty comfortable and confident that you guys have done this, enough to know how exactly to do this and what the best way is. And is it going to be perfect? Of course not. But I think that the fact that you're willing to put the effort in, even though you've already accepted another job, speaks volumes of your dedication to the township. And I think that, I really appreciate that. And the residents really should appreciate that. This is, you and Greg, to me, are the equivalency of losing, I know people like basketball terms on this board. So it would be the equivalency of losing Embiid and James Harden all in the same season. You guys are, you're superstars in my eyes. So I know that it's, you don't have to stay. You don't have to give those extra hours. The fact that you're willing to do those things speaks volumes of your character, and it speaks volumes of Greg's characters to see, individual projects through. And I, as an individual, as board, really, really appreciate that.
Definitely. And I think that as far as Greg Huckelbridge is concerned, the vast majority of what he's going to do shouldn't take but minutes every few hours just to get things moving. The most important thing, in my opinion, is the reconciliations with MMA. We're going back 5 years now, and we already have attorneys involved. So when this becomes a matter, if this becomes a matter of litigation, it would be great to have a man with Greg's institutional knowledge to work with our solicitors to see this through to a just end. And that, to me, where we're talking maybe millions of dollars, is well worth the investment in Greg's expertise and knowledge, as well as Kurt, to work with him to get this thing through.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Thank you. With that being said, I called a question. All those in favor to consider to approve Greg Huckelbridge's contract services consulting agreement, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Noted with that one correction on paragraph 6.
Sure. Thank you very much. I believe we have a couple of zoning hearing appeals. In the interest of time, could you just get to the ones that I think
Yeah,
you had some
we would
feedback on?
recommend on the first 3, Vaticott, Abriola, and Festa/Volpe, that we defer unless there's a separate concern by any supervisors.
Any supervisors have concern with those first 3?
On the last 2, we're, from our perspective, we're kind of on the fence. I will say Bottolowski, this is on 116 Walnut Lane, tax parcel 20-052-127-001, requesting a variance from Township Ordinance 200-69.A14 small a in order to construct a 1,750 square foot accessory storage building at a height of 25 feet where 15 feet is the maximum permitted. Township Ordinance, and also variance from Township Ordinance 200-23.B in order to increase the impervious surface from the existing 14.1% to 20.97%, where 18% is the allowable amount. Just for reference, this property on Walnut Lane is at the very southeastern part of the township. Walnut Lane is actually a road that divides Lower Makefield from Falls Township in that location. Some may recall that last year that road was paved by Falls Township, and we paid Falls for that. So just to give you some context as to where that property is located, I know there was some concern expressed by supervisors about whether we should participate or oppose. So I'm just leaving it to your devices at this point. What you would
Did
like.
somebody want to oppose that or participate? Yes,
Yeah,
Fred.
I'd like to make a motion to oppose. This is a really tight area, and it's a relatively large building for the neighborhood. I'd like, in this case, to oppose.
Is there a
but-
second?
I'll second that, Fred.
Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any discussion?
Dave, do you know, I'm just looking at the parcel map, assuming it mapping to the right spot. It looks like it's in an overhead view, so I'm not sure what the front looks like, but it's a house with a pool and with a fair amount of impervious area around the pool, plus a pool house or a pool shed. Do you know if they're looking to replace in place the outbuilding or the pool house, whatever that is? Or are they putting in
did
another
look
one?
at that before. I don't know if I have that paperwork actually with me. I apologize, I don't,
Yeah.
but I do believe it may have been, I think, a replacement of an existing outbuilding with this one, and then obviously increasing the footprint related to that, which leads to also the impervious surface. So that's my understanding.
Yeah, and 25 feet tall leads me to believe that they may be trying to put an apartment in there or something like that. I
They want to
don't
use
know
it
that.
for boat storage, they said.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, I'll stick with you on this one, Fred. It's just, that's large.
Any other discussion regarding the opposition of this zoning hearing appeal? Any public comment regarding this? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Thank you. Hearing none, call to question. All those in favor of opposing appeal number 22-1967, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0. And then the last one, Dave?
Yeah, last one, appeal 22-1968, Joseph and Angela Kearns for property located on Big Oak Road. There's no address there because it's an open lot, but to give context to this, it's between Charles Bay Middle School and the service station at the corner of Big Oak and Makefield Roads. This property actually fronts Big Oak Road, but has a small frontage on the west side of Makefield Road behind the service station, I think in front of the Episcopal Church there. It's tax parcel 20-034-089-002, requesting a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-22 in order to construct a single-family residential dwelling with a 60-foot front yard setback, where 80 feet is otherwise required for a collector road. I did speak to the applicant's attorney for some clarification. The request for the actually where the house is being proposed, they measured the setbacks in the back, which do not require variance, from the floodplain area, not from the property line. So they do take into account that there's a floodplain area behind that. As you may recall last time when we talked about Charles Bain School, there's it's right in that area. With respect to the 60-foot front yard setback, apparently all the homes along Big Oak Road in that area are much closer than the 60-foot setback that's being indicated here. Just to give you some context as far as what the arguments would be or the proposals would be at the zoning hearing board. So I just want to make sure that the board was aware of that.
Just to clarify, you're talking about that piece of land directly in front of I believe the Muslim temple is there.
It's on the other
Between-
side of the road from that, yes.
Sure, and it's
Yeah.
between Charles Bain and the
The service
Citrus-
station,
and the
yeah.
Citrus
It's an open
station.
lot there. It's on the north side of Big Oak Road in that area, yes. And if you look at the the application. The creek road runs behind it, on the back side of it. And then as you kind of curl around to the top right, I guess, north side of that property and behind the gas station, the service station, there's a piece of it that fronts on Makefield Road.
Do you know what the acreage is?
I do not know it off the top of my head. I'm
I'm
sorry.
looking it up here if I can find it.
Jim's got it on the
I do
screen.
have that here. I do
Click on
have
the
it.
parcel.
Hold on. I think I have that.
Pop
here.
up.
This
There you
is-
go.
Yeah.
1.61 acres.
Yeah, as I say, it's a fairly good sized lot, but they measure the,
I see it.
for the setback in the back from the, like I said, from the floodplain line, not from the property line. So they take that into account even before they,
And the frontage would be on Big Oak Road?
yes.
So the
Front
buil-
yard setback is the minimum reasonable setback for the area. The proposal is compliant with all remaining dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinances. That's in the application, but if the application does show with Rock Run Creek along the back and the lines for the 100-year floodplain and the proposed location of the structure is still does not impede the backyard setback. It's only the front yard. And again, according to the attorney, and you can, there's actually an overhead photographic map, Google map that does demonstrate that the many of the other homes along that area, that stretch of road in Big Oak, are well within 60 feet in the front yard.
And
Again, it's up to you to decide how you want to proceed.
did they give you an idea of what the building footprint was going to be?
Oh.
I'm putting it all on you, Dave.
Let me see what they propose. Look at the plans to see what they,
What's the question, Jim?
the print is way too small for me to read with my,
James, what was your question?
Oh, what the building footprint would be.
it's not, I mean, look, from the,
Do you know if they did a wetland delineation here, Dave? I know we're talking about a setback from the floodplain limits, but just looking at the aerial, I'm wondering if the wetlands go, if there's wetlands there that go outside the floodplain,
I don't know. My suspicion is no, but I don't know that as a fact.
because there's another setback off of that we'd have to consider.
Right.
And we could have them verify that. This is Jim Majewski here. Sorry, my camera's not working.
Hey, Jim.
But we can have them verify that. They may have already done that if I'm not mistaken. I know walking back there, there doesn't appear to be any wetlands outside of the actual water course limits.
No.
Okay. Does anybody want to participate or oppose?
Your recommendation was participate.
I was on the fence. I didn't want to, I just wanted, I got clarification from the attorney just to make sure that I wasn't missing something.
Right.
Yep.
I would be
Is it-
trying to participate. And the reason for that is mainly over traffic concerns with that corner. I know we've done some changes in signals and some other stuff. I just want to make sure that we're there. I think that zoning hearing board could probably solve this. However, I want to make sure that our interests are brought forward as it relates to setbacks and potential, obviously, if you look on the satellite map, the other side and the applicant will rightfully say, hey, the setbacks are much closer on the other
Exactly
side.
what the attorney said.
Right. So if there's things that could be done to mitigate that or encourage the zoning hearing board to seek that, I would be okay with participation without opposition.
Would you like to make that motion, John?
I move that the Board of Supervisors participate in appeal number 22-1968, Joseph and Angela Kearns for the property is located on Big Oak Road, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, tax parcel 20-034-089-002.
Do I hear a second? Second by motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Thank you all. Call to question. All those in favor of participating in zoning hearing appeal 22-1968, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And the last item I have, it truly is, I think, the last time, well, never say never, is the John Acova matter. Mr. Janikova Jr. and Mrs. Janikova are present. This is a request for approval of minor subdivision plans that were presented a while back. I'll get into the details here in just a moment. Just to orient everybody, this property is located on the northeast corner of Makefield Road and Sutphen Road. There's a large open lot, and then there's a structure on the other half of it, for lack of a better term. This did go before the zoning hearing board. I believe it was in October. And there was relief granted with conditions which included, and according to my partner, Barbara Kirk, who presented a declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions that are defined in the document that was already presented. So what this would be, and if one of you want to describe briefly what your plans are there, you can go ahead and do that, and then I can make have a motion for a letter.
I just need you to state your name and address for the record if both of you are going to
Robert
speak.
Janikova. I live in 12 St. James Place. I will be speaking on a proposed lot of 1706 Sutphen Road. This is a property, Mayfield Road. This is a property that was bought 13 years ago. It was the original farmland for the subdivision called Green Acres. The family, it's been in 3 families for the last 110 years, including ours. As you can see, that the property is continuing with the neighborhood. We wish to develop the northeast side of the property, which is 3 from the corner and intersection of Sutphen Road and Makefield Road. Currently, there are 2 properties on there. There's one on Makefield Road. There is an old Victorian catty court adjacent to the Lutheran Church. The property approximately sits on 2.6 acres and also has some outbuildings as well, including a barn, a garage, and a chicken coop, and another garage.
The chicken coop predates zoning, just there.
It's zoned R2, correct? Jim, do you know if it's zoned R2? That's what I'm finding.
Yeah,
It's
that is
still there.
correct. It's zoned R2.
Okay.
And the lot sizes are fairly consistent with the surrounding area. You could see the proposed lot is going to be roughly just to the south of where that garage is, where the mouse is, and extend out. So it'll actually be bigger than most of the lots in the surrounding area.
And are you keeping the original structure?
We are keeping the original garage, and we are changing the polarity of the garage. So the garage goes currently east to west, and door will be opening north. So nothing of the 4 corners of the garage will be knocked down. We'll just be changing the door from going east to west, basically north to south.
Okay. And then the twin style Victorian that's on that lot, that'll be,
The Victorian's on Sutphen Road, facing Sutphen.
Okay.
Next to this is a,
Colonial.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So James, when this came in front of the planning commission, there was, it's kind of funny you asked about the garage. There was a discussion about which way it was going to open. So I'm sure Mr. Janikova there was ready for that one. But that was handled well. I think the two items that came up at the planning commission meeting were sight lines coming around the corner, which I think during the planning commission, they addressed with the way the vegetated buffers would be set back from the property line, allowed for proper sight lines. And Mr. Majewski can correct me if I misspeak there, but there were some concerns about that, which I think they answered favorably for the planning commission. And then the main item that the planning commission was trying to wrap their heads around, I guess, and Mr. Janikova, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. The main question they had, I believe, on one of the lots there's 2 homes, and on another lot there's 1 home. So the planning commission was concerned about if this property's been in the 3 families over 100 years, but the planning commission was concerned if, since there are 2 homes on one of the parcels, if that changes hands, what does that mean from a restriction perspective? Can you have different families in the different homes, rental issues? They were being thoughtful, I think, about some of our Airbnb issues that we've addressed. So I think the responses were favorable to the planning commission. But though, from my recollection, those were the two concerns that the planning commission had that were addressed, and ultimately it was recommended for us to move forward with this.
And Jim, just to clarify, multifamily use on this parcel, even though it's R2, is grandfathered?
Yeah, they're grandfathered and they already have 2 houses on the property. Therefore, they're allowed to maintain those 2 houses as is.
And is there any restrictions on occupancy under that zoning, or is it?
Yeah,
does it
there are
allow for
restrictions
income
on
producing?
occupancy. One of the things that our township solicitor has been working on was to, and this was a condition of the zoning hearing board and also emphasized again at the planning commission level, was a declaration of the property. I believe Mr. Truelove can speak on that.
Yes, thank you, Jim. As I mentioned, I think in my initial comments, part of the approval process would require their agreement to agree to a deed agreement. It says no property transfer, declaration of covenants, conditions and restrictions. There are several conditions there that reflect some of the discussions that Mr. Supervisor Grenier was presenting.
So essentially, there's a deed restriction that's going to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
in place with this, that's going to not allow it to be conveyed to somebody else with the same use?
Well, it talks about limiting it to residential use. It can't be used for boarding houses, short-term rentals, no business or commercial use. Lot 1 shall retain its use as a residential property for residential housing of the owners or other long-term authorized renters of Lot 1 in accordance with the provisions of the township zoning ordinance. So, and it also talks about the declaration shall restrict and encumber only that portion of the property shown on the plan as Lot 1, with the 2 existing 2-story residential dwellings constructed on it. If one of the 2 residential dwellings shall be demolished and or removed and not reconstructed, then and only then, in that event, shall this declaration terminate. So it's pretty limited to make sure that the purpose and use is maintained consistently.
And if it's conveyed, then it's also conveyed to the new owner.
Right, it runs with the land, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Quick question here, and perhaps for the applicant, there was mention of a chicken coop on there.
Yes,
That's on the,
that's not on the,
that's not on this.
that's not planned on a subdivision. That's the historical background of the property. If you could look on the map,
So I won't have to ask for a no rooster provision?
the roosters.
Okay.
The chicken coops uses storage now.
Nice.
I don't think they've been.
Any other questions by supervisors? I guess we have to have.
You have to have a motion.
Yeah, I didn't get a motion
I'll
yet.
read the letter as the motion as we
Sure.
try to do. I know this is the most exciting part of any meeting for anybody, but
Yes.
it's for 1 Sutphen Road, Plan number 686, a minor subdivision review back Bucks County tax map parcel number 20-042-109. This is for a minor subdivision request for an existing lot and conceptual single-family dwelling on the new lot as submitted by Edward A. Is it Riemann or Ryman? Ryman, PE. The subdivision plan submitted to the township included minor subdivision plan 1 Sutphen Road dated February 8th, 2022, prepared by Mr. Ryman. Second, calculations for small project stormwater management dated March 1, 2022 is prepared by Mr. Ryman. 3, results of a percolation test for rain garden dated February 22nd, 2022 is prepared by Mr. Ryman. All those aforementioned plans as outlined are hereinafter collectively referred to as the plan. Unless otherwise addressed during the approval process, the approval of the plan is subject to all the terms and conditions contained in this letter as part of the motion. You are required to comply in all respects with each and every requirement of the Lower Makefield Township subdivision and land development ordinance, Lower Makefield Township zoning ordinance, and all other municipal ordinances and regulations, and with the laws and regulations of every level of government having jurisdiction over any aspect of your property. All references in this letter are to the ordinances unless otherwise indicated. Furthermore, all references in this letter to you shall mean, without further explanation, the applicant of the project. So without limiting the generality of all the foregoing, the board will consider approving this motion, subject to specific compliance with the following terms. Number 1, you must comply with all conditions set forth in the decision of the Lower Makefield Township Zoning Hearing Board, said decision dated October 5th, 2022. Specifically, you have agreed to a deed restriction to preserve the residential character and nature of the lot, excuse me, and to prohibit commercial or business enterprise use of the property as is more fully set forth in said October 5th, 2021 zoning hearing board decision and the full record and minutes of same. You will sign and record the final declaration of restrictions, covenants, and conditions in such form as approved by the township solicitor, which in this case would be my partner, Barbara Kirk. Otherwise, you shall comply with all other requirements under the township zoning code. 2, in addition to the foregoing, you shall comply with the requirements set forth in the letter dated April 22nd, 2022, prepared by the township's engineering consultant, Remington and Vernick Engineers, incorporated herein as though it's set forth in full. Well, that means it's will be attached to this. You shall comply with all requirements and determinations of the township's traffic engineer, including but not limited to all requirements and conditions as more fully set forth in the review letter dated March 28th, 2022, as issued by Safe Highway Engineering LLC. Next, you shall comply with all requirements and determinations of the township's traffic safety officer, including but not limited to all requirements and conditions as more fully set forth in the review memorandum dated March 13th, 2022, as issued by Tom Roach, traffic safety officer. Next, you shall comply with all requirements and determinations of the review memorandum for fire consultant and now township fire official Timothy Chamberlain, dated March 25th, 2022. Next, you shall comply with all requirements and determinations of the Lower Makefield Township Planning Commission, including but not limited to all requirements and conditions as more fully set forth in the review memo dated May 12th, 2022. And that would include reference to the entry of a declaration of covenants and restrictions provided by Barbara M. Kirk, Esquire of Hill Wallach LLP. This motion would then require your agreement with all those conditions. Do you agree with those conditions?
Yes.
We do.
Thank you. That would be the.
Would you like him to repeat those?
Please no.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any further discussion by the supervisors?
Just want to make sure that beautiful row of peonies is going to be around. I love that corner when I pass.
Mhm. Any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
Call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get
Thank you
that.
very much.
If you can email me your email address,
Yes.
so I can get that to you, that'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Sorry to keep you here so late. I hope you enjoyed the meeting. Good. No worries. Agenda item number 14, general public comment. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please. Yeah, I believe you.
Zachary Rubin, 1661 Covington Road. If the chair permits, I'd like to direct this to Chief Caluzzi.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I am the president of Makefield Glen Homeowners Association. We are 848 homes on all private roads. A couple of days ago, one of our residents was walking at 8 p.m. and observed a number of young people going door to door in our complex. She confronted these people and they said they were from the Clean Water Alliance. Now, that's a wonderful organization and I have donated to them, but she informed them that it is private property, this community. We have signs posted on both sides of an entrance to our property, no soliciting, this is private community. They produced a permit from Lower Makefield from the police. The resident said, well, you're still not permitted, you're trespassing, and she called the police. Police officer came, saw the permit, and said to our resident, they have a right to be on our property. Now, I brought this up a number of years ago with the chief, and he agrees that only political solicitation can go on private property. Now, Clean Water is a 501, not 3C, but a 4C, and by definition, they cannot participate in political activity. So I would like the chief to reacquaint his officers of the permitting does not give a solicitor the right to come onto private property.
Excellent.
Well,
Thank you.
Zach, I agreed then and I agree now. You're absolutely right. And I will make sure the officer, I'll find out who it is and I'll make sure the officer's aware of that.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Zach. Any other public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No public comment online.
All right, so moving on to discussion items. I believe Supervisor Lewis wanted to have an open discussion about an interim township manager. I will open it. by saying that I think that we have a very skilled township manager and a very skilled chief of police that can handle this transition. I think based on a prior conversation that we had regarding the talent pool that we're looking to pull from based on a base salary, we're aiming pretty high. So we have to replace our superstar with another superstar. So I'm not 100% sure how an interim manager would help during this transition, but I'm willing to listen to options.
With that, I think it's very, very important that we get an interim manager. And I will say that as someone who's gone through that transition process previously and try to make it, I believe, probably as smooth as possible with other supervisors. We don't want to be in a circumstance 6 to 8 weeks from now where we're receiving operational calls that you don't want us to receive. I don't think, James, you would want to receive those. That's not our role to run the operations of the township or to be the backstop when we don't have sufficient folks slotted in those positions. We can easily get an interim township manager that will help ensure that we have the time to select the correct township manager that will work best for a very long time. I say this now, and it's probably everybody's like, well, there's been a long delay in the process of getting started on this. I know I've agitated and pushed on this. For the record, I think Solicitor Truelove and the chief know that I agitated and pushed the last time we had to do a transition and had to push a lot longer and a lot harder. My frustration will be is that we get to August, we get to September, and we don't have a candidate either identified or close to joining. And we will be in a situation where we're relying on people that have primary full-time jobs. This isn't about the discussion of those people, right, as their performance or any of that element. It's simply a discussion of the work required and the staff resources we have to do that. So I'm very frustrated when everything is put into this weird lens here. It isn't about the people that had that position previously, whether, whatever you thought. This is about going forward. And going forward means that we're going to have somebody there to handle the operations of the township. And we've been in a circumstance where we didn't have a public works director, we didn't have a township manager, and it's very difficult to deal with when you're now receiving citizen concerns that when they don't get immediate responses, they fall back on you. And that's not our role, nor would any of my fellow supervisors really want that role. We want to have people in place to actually do the management of the township, to manage the operations. If we can get somebody who's a skilled public manager, and again, JPM has done this for years with multiple municipalities in the area, it reduces the pressure to find somebody quickly and perhaps somebody who might be not the most ideal candidate. I'm going to continue to push on this. Today, you may be not happy with that, but I'm willing to say that should this drag on 3-4 months, you're going to be wishing you had somebody in place to deal with it. And if anything, that would help spur the board on to finding a replacement for our township manager. That's why I'm pushing this. I don't really want to be in the operations management business. I mean, I do that to some degree, but not in this case. It's not my role. It's not your role. We need to have somebody in there that can run that on a regular basis. Again, no disrespect to the former occupants. It's not really the point here. They have limited time. It's like airline seats in an airline. Once the plane goes up, that revenue's gone. Well, they have limited time and they have families and other things. And we have staff with limited time as well. And that's why I'm suggesting very, very, very strongly that we get an interim township manager. And again, it doesn't hurt us to talk to JPM, get 3 or 4 candidates, have a short discussion. You may find, hey, these candidates are great. I'll take 1 or 2, whoever, and go forward. Or alternatively, you might find that those candidates aren't acceptable or you don't want them on an interim basis. And you say no, right? But you don't lose anything by considering that option. It only gives you choices. And if you do it sooner, it's easier. I know that I sense some supervisors who join me in concern that this has been a long process. We haven't been as aggressive as we should have been in my perspective, and perhaps others. It gets harder later. The sooner we can go after this, the better off we'll be. And I trust that, I think in general, our citizens will be better served by having a full-time interim manager. And our public safety apparatus will continue to operate to the manner which it is. And, and each time that, even tonight we had a testimonial of the fine work of our police force in terms of dealing with the Cornerstone situation. So I don't want anything to disrupt that in any way. That's the thrust of my suggestion here. I really strongly urge my fellow board members to strongly consider this. I know for some it seems like there's something else there. No, it's really just a simple, I want to make sure that we have support, because I don't want, and I don't think any of you guys want, us to not be in a position where we have the support that we need to support the community. So that's my impassioned plea.
Just for just for clarification. So what you're saying is that you would like to explore an interim township manager to work along Kurt during his transition, or during the transition of him out, while we're continuing to interview possible candidates for township manager, hence alleviating Chief Coluzzi from being kind of the interim.
Duty.
Yeah, kind of being the interim.
And what my intent here is this. Again, and what I'm looking for is, I'd make a motion that we put that on the agenda for the next meeting. And if the board approves it at the next meeting, we talk to JPM, we get 3 or 4 candidates. If one of those works, right, we have an interim township manager that can serve us 3, hopefully 3, maybe not 6 months. And that gives us the time to find the township manager that all of the supervisors want for us. And I know Kurt can testify, when he was selected, right? He had a unanimous vote. And I think, Kurt, you would say that that process of onboarding, getting you here, worked very well, right? He said, hey, everyone voted for you. They knew what they were getting when you came aboard in terms of that. That process worked, right? So I think we want to have the time to deliver the same process going forward. That's my pitch. I've worked in organizations, again, I know I don't like to use experience too much. I'd rather talk about the facts, but when you're understaffed, it is brutal. I say that because I just hired a person. His sole job is to make sure I have a good summer. I joke. He's got other roles, responsibilities, he's doing wonderfully, but when we're understaffed, it doesn't serve the citizens. And that's my pitch.
Is there any other comments? Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And how that role is filled in terms of the particular skill set we would look at is a little bit time dependent too. As we go through the summer, we get closer to budget season. So maybe if we have an option to get someone who's a little more finance oriented versus strict operations oriented, because I think who we have, looking at you, Chief, and Kurt and other folks, we can, if we have someone who's a little more finance oriented as we enter the budget season, then and we augment the operations side, because we have a very strong operations side staff right now with who we have and the structure we're going to have for at least the next few months. Having someone with a finance background will only augment that operations side. So, and again, that's a timing issue, because we're gonna, as we know, the budget doesn't happen in December. It happens much sooner than that in all reality. So as we move into that, especially after dealing with the sewer sale proceeds, as we're going to be doing over these next several weeks, I think it's important that we keep that momentum going. We show support for our staff by having someone in the building that they can go to with experience. Obviously, that may not be the long-term person, but it allows them a structure to move forward with. I know, and sometimes, I'm not saying this is the case, sometimes we get lucky and that person we get as an interim we get lucky in that, hey, like, wow, that person's really good. Why don't we just keep them around? That happens a lot. Not saying that'll happen here, and I'm not thinking of anyone in particular. But that may be something that we luckily fall into. I don't know that, but I think having that role is key to keeping the organizational structure going, so that, I know we're going to rely heavily on chief, as we always do, but he also has a lot of officers, and I know he will perform brilliantly and will work his butt off, but we don't want to put him through that all the time, especially in the summertime when he deserves a little bit of time off down the shore or wherever he wants to go, and anyone else for that matter. So that I'm familiar with interim township managers growing up. My best friend's dad was our township manager in my hometown, similar sized town to Lower Make, very different demographics though. And before they hired him, there was an interim township manager that went pretty smoothly. That was a big help. And after he left to go somewhere else, they had another interim township manager that helped with a transition. And it helps a lot just to fill some gaps that we don't expect to happen on a daily basis, that you just need someone in the building to deal with. So that I would agree with Supervisor Lewis in concept, and it's really how we fill that gap is person dependent a little bit, but there are certain key elements that I think we'd be looking for if we did do that. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Dan. Any other comments? Kurt, yes.
Chief, just for the board's sake, because you've been here for a while and it's not like you've submitted a resume, at least recently, can you, at least for the board, for the public, talk about like what your background, what your education is? I mean, we all know your police stuff, but you did go get a degree or two that I'm aware of.
Barring the police education and the staff and command schools, Northwestern University, I have a master's in public administration, and I've been with the township probably over 21 years.
Okay. I just thought with all discussion about staff and everything, just some discussion about your background, since you're being talked about, and some supplemental role would be important, that everyone knew what your background was.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Kurt. Fred, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really aware of Chief's experience, qualifications, and what he did for us back in early 18. I've worked with interim managers. I know of 4 townships and 2 boroughs that have worked with interim managers, and I can say unequivocally, other than being a placeholder and answering the phone, they are not a value added to the township or to the municipality in question in almost every case. I appreciate the comments. However, with Kurt doing the assist and the chief doing the day-to-day, answering the phones, dealing with department heads and general staff issues, I think in the next 3 or 4 months, we can be well served and save the money or spend the money in other areas. We have a finance person that could easily become a finance director one day in Allison. We have a number of good administrative assistants that have developed excellent phone skills and have no problem deferring to the chief if need be. I have very good faith in our police command staff to do a little bit extra, and it's definitely been already proven in the last couple of months of our computer issues. I do not see a need to hire an interim. I do not see a need to even look for one at this point, unless in the next 2 or 3 months our applicant pool is insufficient to carry us that we won't be able to hire a manager for 23. But I really don't see a need for an interim manager at this point. I think we can hollow through very well. And if there's something that requires board action, we can always hold an emergency meeting to make a decision if necessary.
Thanks, Fred. Suzanne, do you have anything to add at this time? Thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, I think it's something that we can look at. I still lean towards the plan that was given to us by Kurt and Chief. I don't know if this means that we have to name a sandwich after you as well, Chief, at the snack stand, but next thing you know, that whole menu is going to have your name all over it. But yeah.
Respectfully, all I'm suggesting is that we place on the agenda at the next meeting an up or down vote. I'm not suggesting that, all I'm suggesting is that we explore that opportunity. And I see no downside risk of exploring that opportunity. And to Supervisor Weiss's perspective, we're not quite sure what the applicant pool will be at this time. And whether part of the discussion is we want to make sure we have a competitive, compelling offering for folks. And the sooner we do that, the less risk we have. And if, again, considering that doesn't mean that you've accepted an interim township manager. All it means is that you're willing to talk to them and see what the options are. I think that's a reasonable approach and does not necessarily preclude any decisions suggested. If Chief Caluzzi wanted to apply for the township manager position, I would certainly welcome his application in that process.
No, that's not, excuse me, but that's not even part of this discussion.
Right.
Not applying for any other position in the township, just here to help out if the board sees that that's the way they want to go.
Right. So, and that's what I'm suggesting here. It does not cost you anything, right? And it gives you an opportunity here to, hedge if circumstances change. And trust me, like I said, if you don't consider it, you may regret not considering it a couple months from now. And even participants who are willing to step up and help may become frustrated with their time commitments. And that's just a reasonable approach to deal with a challenging staffing issue.
Okay. I will definitely take it under advisement for the next meeting then. Is there anything else discussion item wise?
I don't know if this should go here or there because it doesn't really go anywhere. But I did want to just say thank you.
Excuse me, I have public comment on what was just discussed.
Yeah, just one second.
She on that same subject?
Well, I don't know if we asked for public comment on that discussion item. Yeah.
I can't discuss a discussion item, is that what you're saying?
Sure, discuss the discussion item. Can you say, state
Well,
your
thank
name and
you.
address? for the
Zachary
record,
Rubin,
please?
1661.
Okay, I'm giving you
Covington
30 seconds, Mr. Rubin.
Road. I don't get 3 minutes?
Nope, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Well, I told this when Mr. Fedorchik resigned and you searched for a new township manager. I had an anecdotal comment and I just want to repeat it. I have a cousin who worked for Ross Perot Industries and he retired a number of years ago and the company hired a national search consultant. They spent $60,000 to $70,000 searching for the country for a replacement for Ross Perot. And they came up with one candidate, the most qualified candidate, and his name was Ross Perot Jr. Now, who would think the most qualified person in the whole country had an office 30 feet from the present CEO? I just want to make that comment when you hired JPM.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment regarding the discussion item? Hearing none, nobody on the phone. Suzanne, please continue.
Quickly, we had a great blood drive last week. Thank you to all the residents who came out and endured the broken air conditioner, which required many of us to rush home and get fans so that we could make sure that the appropriate temperature was maintained in the space so that the blood drive could go forward. So successful that the Red Cross asked us to host another one. So mark your calendars, drink your fluids, August 5th. Hope to see you all again there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Any other discussion items? All right, hearing none, moving on to supervisor reports. I have nothing to report at this time. Supervisor Weiss.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Supervisor Grenier.
Planning Commission, we spoke about, Historic Commission, we spoke about their issues last night, actually. And Harbor, we haven't seen yet the new plans for the point. So that's the next one coming up, I believe. That's about it.
Supervisor Blondie.
A great, very hot styrofoam cork battery pill bottle collection day on the 21st, I believe it was. Really want to shout out to some of our neighbors. We had a gentleman who rode up on his bicycle carrying a giant bag of styrofoam. We had several families who take it upon themselves as they go for walks to appropriately pick styrofoam out of other people's trash and save it so that it can come to the recycle event. The event has become a lot more onerous, and I want to give a special shout out to Alan Dresser, not only because he endured the heat, but because he rented a U-Haul truck and back and forth to get it to the few places that will take these styrofoam products, and also to Kevin in all he's doing so that he can find a home for recycled batteries, right? It's not like we just collect them and we hand them off someplace else. The EAC members really have to seek partners who will help us, because these items, while they're recyclable, are not easily recyclable. And it's really a yeoman effort that they do.
Thank you. And Supervisor Lewis.
Sure. First, thank Supervisor Blondie again for help on the blood drive. For those who attended the blood drive, the gentleman and the team there really pulled the blood quickly, was in and out. I had to wait a little bit to get there, but the time on the bench was actually really quick. And that means that you save on beer that night. Citizens Traffic Commission met on May 23rd and addressed some issues around speeding. Has followed up already with Chief Caluzzi and SAFE to get some monitoring at Reading and Fairway Roads. I know ahead of that is Mirror Lake. And then the Trenton Mercer Citizens Airport Review Committee will be meeting on Monday. Yep, that's this Monday, right here in this very room. And that is my report for this week.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any appointments to boards and commissions? I don't believe we do. That being said, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.